scientificmedia.com presents Beyond the Wall, a Game of Thrones podcast. With hosts Christiana Ellis, Jute Schubert, Vivid Muse, and Nookchus. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Season 8 of Beyond the Wall. Tonight we are discussing Episode 4 of Game of Thrones, titled The Last of the Starks, with no spoilers past the currently aired episodes. I'm Chooch, and as always, I'm joined by Christiana Ellis.
Hello.
Nutty Nookchus.
Oh, hi. That's me.
Hi. And Vivid Muse.
Hi.
Hi. It's great to see everybody. It's a lot fresher for me. I just finished a rewatch an hour or so ago. Last week I didn't have a chance. I only got to see it once. I've actually only watched it once. And I heard somebody else mention, Mike McCauley had mentioned that upon second viewing that the darkness didn't really bug him as much. So maybe something to be said for that.
I think in terms of the battle, it was like what I said last week in terms of my rewatch is that I felt more strongly during the rewatch that there's an awful lot of stuff that is just white fighting action that doesn't change anything really. Mm-hmm. And so I think when it doesn't seem as dark because you kind of know when the big moments are and what's going to happen. And so when it's okay for a scene to be dark because there's none of the characters you care about in it.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Mike McCauley says it just didn't seem as dark. And I think part of that is that you know what's going on. You know what the shapes are already. So, it's kind of like if the volume is low, but you've got the captions on, you can kind of understand what people are saying better.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all.
Your brain can fill things in.
Yeah. I did see that some website out there went and they worked on all the levels and they lightened things up. And some people were saying they really liked being able to see, but wow, it was even more gruesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the darkest scene, which is the beginning scene with the walkers and everything like that. The Dothraki disappearing into the walker line and all that. And it was far more gruesome. And I ended up thinking even more, how the hell did Grey Worm survive, and Tormund and Brienne and Jaime? The way the lightened scenes showed the way that the zombie army was just like running over them. Like there was just no way. And so it added really to the disbelief for me being able to see more clearly. So.
Interesting. And Game of Thrones news in general, we touched on this a couple of weeks ago, but there was for some reason a lot of speculation about the successor shows that Mr. Martin likes to call them instead of spinoffs. And so I guess there's been there's 3 more Game of Thrones being launched or whatever. So there are not new shows being launched. Originally there were 5 that they got greenlit to go ahead with. And then 1 was completely 2 have been completely canceled. So there's 3 that's gone to pilot and 2 that are in the scripting stage. But George says they're moving along. All 3 of them are, even those 2 are still really moving along. And the one that's going to have a pilot is the one that's like way, way back when that I think goes into Valeria.
Oh, cool.
Can't remember. And the one, of course, George is most excited about is still being scripted, but it's the one specifically about the Targaryens that he wrote his, what's that other book called?
The Fire and Blood.
Hedge Knight.
Fire and Blood.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Fire and Blood. Really far back.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the ones that are scripted.
I always thought the Hedge Knight would just be perfect, because we've got 3-4 short stories and there's enough to, fill in there. And there's a lot of things that you can do without, mucking up the timeline. But what do I know?
Yeah. I don't think I've seen what the other ones are. And so out of this last episode, it seems that one of the most exciting developments ever is HBO has spent roughly $1 billion filming this show. And they accidentally gave Starbucks the product placement of a lifetime for free.
In their official statement, they just called it a craft services cup. Has it been
Of course.
confirmed that it is officially Starbucks, or is it just
No, I don't
look like it
think
just
so.
looks
But
like
they're
those
the
cups?
Xerox of coffee
Yeah.
cups nowadays.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not the Athens cup, and it's definitely not like a Dunkin' Donuts cup. So everybody's like, well, it's a coffee cup, so it's Starbucks.
Yeah.
I know when Viv had mentioned, aren't they in like Romania or somewhere? Like
Croatia, a
Starbucks
lot of
out
the
there?
time.
Croatia, right, Croatia. That's right.
Although, I mean, that scene was just on a set, so that
Yeah.
could be anywhere.
Mhm.
Although
That makes sense.
this is not news for anybody that's been watching, but I recently watched an episode of the Grand Tour, and they actually do a whole driving thing on some of the old sets for Game of Thrones,
Ooh,
which is really
cool.
wild. So if
Fun.
you're interested in that, that's one episode just to look up.
Very cool. I
Yeah.
think, any other news bits from anybody? Jump into this episode. I think this one's pretty linear. I don't think.
Paulette says it's Belfast for set pieces.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
I think that
Belfast.
sounds right.
I
They
don't know.
definitely
I'm
have
assuming they
Starbucks.
have Starbucks in Belfast. They have Starbucks everywhere.
Yeah.
There's Starbucks on the moon. I mean, come on.
So the last of the Starks, the title sequence hasn't changed. You know, the little square stopped flipping. And,
Question. It looked like I didn't catalog all the changes, but it was the scene where it went down in showed like the hearth room in Winterfell looked like it was all busted up.
I'll have to look closer. I noticed that it just didn't look like it looked like they were the same places. And yeah, I didn't notice that. Interesting. I was paying attention to like the crypts to see if things were busted, and it didn't look like it was busted at all.
Well, the weird thing is that we see that room in this episode, and it doesn't look all busted up. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We open outside of Winterfell where they're laying the fallen to rest. In theory, burning's no longer necessary, but I think this would be pretty common in war no matter what when you have that many bodies.
Yeah.
But I think they just want to be safe.
Well, right. Like the ground is frozen. You're not going to dig that many holes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's practicality.
Plus, it's what they do in Essos anyway, right?
Mm.
Like that was the whole point of Khal Drogo going into a pyre, right?
I
huh.
don't know that it's consistent though, because if you recall, what's his face, the guy in Marine that Danny was going to marry, he was introduced because his father was one of the guys put up on the, on the cross, and asked that he wanted to have him brought down so that he could be buried.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, huh? That's right.
All right, so maybe it's just Dothraki then.
Well, you know, rich people always have
I
different
don't know.
Yeah.
customs and
Honestly, I am also at this point in the show getting pretty blasé about things happen the way the plot needs them to, not because of any pre-existing lore.
Jumping ahead, they were listening to Christiana when they decided to talk about the Lord of Light and how it doesn't mean anything, and we're not going to hear about it again, and we're going to be unhappy if we keep asking questions.
It is interesting to me that Davos is the one that has really, he's been really conflicted about the Lord of Light this whole time. It's bad, it's good, it's neutral, and now he's just like, it's gone, just fucked off. And
yeah, well, I think Davos has been experiencing the Lord of Light the longest, while other people may have heard of the Lord of Light for longer. Davos has known that there is some power there.
Yeah.
Ever since season 1.
Well, the true believers are all gone, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, in Westeros at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did like in the pyres how they had, the Lyanna Mormont, and they had, like who lit each one, and you've got the Unsullied, and you've got all the different factions. Of course, Sansa laying down a Stark pin on Theon, which it's like, I thought it made me think, well, why don't they put him in the crypts with everybody else? Because like she's the Lady Winterfell now, god damn it, and they could do that,
Yeah.
but I think they're still scared of people
Yeah.
possibly coming back.
Yeah.
I questioned whether or not like the rest of the Starks were actually on those pyres as well. So Mike McCauley says he's curious how much time went by before all the bodies were piled up. I'm thinking dead in the thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, without wanting to be too dismissive of it, I'll kind of just reiterate. It seems very clear to me now that the show is not interested in any kind of sort of logical realism of any kind.
Oh yeah,
Things happen the way they do because that's what they want to have happen in the plot. There's no other consideration at any time.
Mhm.
So what they wanted was a shot that looks big but is not unmanageable, and so that's how many it is. Get over it.
Well,
I
they only
agree,
lit
though.
the front row and they all burned. So I mean,
Well, in the opening shot, you do see that there are more people standing amongst the further back ones
oh okay.
with torches. So presumably, our named characters lit the front row ones, and the other people lit the others, presumably.
Yeah.
But I agree with Mike that even as many as we saw doesn't look like enough to have covered as many corpses as we would have been dealing with, unless, of course, these 4-foot tall what do they call it? Is a beer? I think BIER.
beer.
Unless those are like stacked
Just
5
filled.
deep,
Just filled in the middle. They just
Yeah.
drop them in,
The
make the
other
outside
thing
look really nice and pretty.
I was thinking when I saw the smoke was like, why is no one coughing? Why is no one choking? Everybody's going to end up with respiratory issues. I mean, that's a lot of, we don't talk about the environmental effects of burning corpses very much, but if we're not actually allowed to track that information, but whatever. It just stupid things that run through my head.
This is also the scene we get our confirmation that Ghost lives. I'm sure many people were crying with joy.
Yeah.
He was very fucked up. His poor little ear. I felt bad there. But so I'll go ahead and jump to the future because my rant last time about Ghost being bullshit. They're finally
all bullshit.
having him
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah, but he doesn't
So
get
he's
a pat
gonna-
on the head. He doesn't get a goodbye. It's just like, oh, he'll be happier there. I'm not going to even talk to him. What was the point?
I think that was my first thing is every pet owner in the universe is crying out,
screaming,
no scritches, no pets. What the fuck?
He's a very good boy. He deserves scritches.
Yeah, you know what? I actually had the thought afterwards is good. I'm glad he's going up north with the other wildlings because, frankly, John doesn't deserve him.
I agree. He does
He's
going to
find someone up the north who will take better care of him and not be such a neglectful, cosmic soulmate.
I think
you don't think Tormund's going to be that one?
It's the Tormund and Ghost show. I'd pay to watch that.
I would love to watch that, and he's going to need some extra snuggles, now that his heart is broken.
I mean, that was just unnecessary.
They didn't even treat his wounds.
I know. It's just.
Yeah. So
the only possible out I thought of was maybe John and Ghost have a telepathic link and they had this knowingful look and like, you're a good boy. Like, but even that's bullshit.
Well,
like in the show, John's never worked, right?
They should have got rid of him seasons ago. They've just.
I have a question. In the
it's
show,
insulting. It's insulting to me.
I agree. In the show, John never worked, right?
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
I almost think that it's like it's almost poetic because if you think about the people that John has loved, he loved Ygritte. She came to a terrible end. And he loves Dany, and that's not looking too spiffy. And so it's like, I think he's just somebody that is just maybe going to just disappoint everybody that really, truly loves him. And maybe that's just the continuation of what we're going to see. He doesn't want to rule. He doesn't want to lead. He doesn't want to be the Lord Commander. He doesn't, want to leave with Ygritte or stay in the caves or hang out at the waterfall with Dany. He doesn't want to do anything. but he also won't not do those things. So it's just like, I think it's almost like an indication of what life with John will be like. It's
Well,
just like disappointing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I'll kind of take it a step further. That so I have two takes on this same point, which is one, I think he is essentially feeling like doomed. He doesn't really have any view of the future at this point because he already knows. Like, well, I mean, we're jumping at this point to him saying goodbye to Ghost, so we're already a little bit out of order. But he knows Danny told him our future depends on you not telling anybody, and he knows he already told his family, and so he there. What future is there?
But he doesn't
knows
think
they're going down to take out Cersei, but then what?
That's
he has
fine.
no plan.
But he could have
Yeah.
given that puppy some scritches.
Well, no, I agree, but my point is that this gets into my other take. I feel like what they're trying to do is it's kind of like the whole thing of he is sending Ghost up with Tormund where he can be safe and happy the way John wishes he could, but can't.
Right.
Because he knows that going south with him is doom, essentially.
Yep. Right.
Now, just because I feel like that's what they're trying to do with him, actually, like they have a lingering shot of him deciding not to go over and pet him, right? And so I feel like that's what they're trying to do. But what I would say about that is that's dumb. I don't like it. And I have the same complaint about Jamie later, but worse. So we'll talk about that.
So
Yeah.
April O'Neil in the
Uh-huh.
chat says John is a bad pet owner and we need to send a raven to the ASPCA. Doesn't
Hear,
clean his
hear.
wounds, doesn't give him pats, doesn't tell him he's a
Mhm.
good boy, doesn't even say goodbye.
Yeah.
Awful.
Agreed.
So from the opening, Lyanna Mormont's gone. I had a side thought, which I don't think is going to be addressed, and I don't think really matters in the big. But I'm presumably she was the last heiress of the house. So I wonder what happens. I'm guessing presumably the Starks would, give the land to somebody else as a reward for being loyal or something. But
Well, I think you're right. I think there's no more Umbers. I think there's no more Mormonts. There's, there's a lot of families that are gone away.
Yeah.
There's no more Boltons.
I think the precedent in that case normally would be, if the succession has sort of been cut short because all of the named Mormonts are gone, that's where you start maybe going to cousins.
Yeah.
Or that sort of thing. But also
Bastards.
potentially, like, if you feel like whoever would be the next on the list is sufficiently down the list, that you may start talking about, like, well, so-and-so really, helped us out and was loyal. So maybe they get to. But I think, yeah, that's kind of how it would normally work. But again, I'm this show's making me feel cynical now.
Yeah.
The show doesn't care.
Yeah.
So
So I kind of want to address the cynicism a little bit. I am right there with you in the sense of I have so many fuck this shows going through my head right now. And as good as the first 3 episodes were, this was the most disappointing of the season. I think Paulette said it best, where they should have called it the last of the fan service. And what does she say? She's I have a cupcake for everyone. For the first one to mention something I liked about this episode. Here's a clue. I have no cupcakes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
harsh.
yeah, it was frustrating because I really did sort of didn't feel like I was hating the episode, but then they took each thread and ended each thread in a okay. Here's something I liked. Arya going off with the Hound, presumably down to King's Landing for purposes undefined but probably guessable.
Yeah.
Like I like
Got a
that.
list.
Yeah.
That's a
Alright.
plot thread I like. I think that there were individual pieces that were in scenes that were good, but boy, it sure just did an awful lot of things that I was really unhappy with.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a
Go ahead.
mine's real quick. There's a lot of things that I did not like that viscerally I was like, ew, but I think as a story were good.
I think what they were trying to do was, all right, we made you really happy. Now we want to make you really low so that the victory or whatever
Yeah.
happens later has meaning. And I understand that, but my problem is I think a lot of it was lazy. I think a lot of it was stupid. I think there were better ways that they could have achieved this goal. There were some things that I can say, yeah, okay, that's legit. But then there are other things where, honestly, I was probably more tolerant of the episode until they killed Miss Sandy. And I have no respect right now.
Yeah.
And I'm having a hard time seeing past that. So I will be bitter and people don't have to agree with me, but that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
So
I think
that
it's
jumps all the
kind
way
of
to the end.
ironic for a filmed medium, but they're telling they're not showing, right?
Yeah,
Because they're moving so fast and they're trying to wrap so many things up.
Right. Like I feel really conflicted in a way because I think in general, I think of myself as someone who tries to reserve judgment on some plot lines and everything. It's like, well, this scene feels really yucky, but maybe they're going somewhere with it. We'll have to see how things play out. We don't know where everything's going to end up. And so by and large, I try to view things with that lens. But I really feel like that mindset was strained in this episode because there were several things where it's very clear they're coming in for a landing, and as they should be. There's only 2 episodes left, but I feel like now that I'm getting a sense of where they're coming in for a landing, I'm feeling like it's not even that I don't like where they're coming in for a landing. I feel like they're not doing it well. It's like, hey, it's really bumpy right now, and hey, shouldn't you have the landing gear out already? And gosh, isn't the crosswind right now? And isn't there another plane on the runway right now? What's happening?
Yeah.
So it's not that I can't. It's like I feel like I see what they're trying to do and don't think they're handling it very well. But I don't want to just be a hater. But this was a very frustrating episode for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I saw one, I think it was Zach Man, one of our listeners, post earlier today that, everything felt so rushed. They're the ones who decided there were going to be 6 episodes.
Yeah.
If they needed more time, they could have decided to give themselves more time. And sorry, Paulette just posted, there's no Captain Sully on the Game of Thrones team. Thank you. But yeah, like they're the ones that decided this is the amount of time we're going to have. They're the ones that decided we're only filming this amount. So, I have a hard time giving them slack for things that they did to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So in the Great Feasting Hall, we've got Danny naming Gendry Baratheon Lord of Storm's End. Which I thought was pretty cool.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot.
It was so great, but immediately at the same time, it's like, oh, well, there goes Arya. That's like, that's literally not the life she wants. She said it since season 1, episode 1.
Yeah.
So it was like, yay, that's awesome, but God damn it.
I also like that it shows that Dany is thinking.
Yeah.
She is trying to be cunning. And it was a very smart political move.
It was.
And it shows, everybody always says that, well, she doesn't actually have any cleverness and she doesn't actually plan and she only works on impulse. but
Yeah.
she's realizing, no, I need to plan,
Yeah.
and this is how I'm going to do it. My
Mhm.
hope of hopes. Well, we'll get into that when Gendry and Arya talk later. But yeah, I love this. I thought
Mhm.
it was awesome. And as I said in the chat to Paulette, because she said just give the houses to all the blacksmiths. Let's give all the houses to the bastards, to the people with no names. Screw the noble houses. Let's start over with real people.
Well,
I'm game.
we're going to talk about it later, but that theme actually ties in really well to Bron's
Mhm.
beef later.
Yeah.
I did like
very
how
much.
Danny's naming of Gendry though just kind of changed the whole mood. It was like literally silent and somber
Mhm.
Yeah.
until Gendry went off looking for Arya and happened to catch Danny's eye. And then after that, you know, the toasting started and the drinking game started and just kind of changed the
Yeah.
whole mood.
Mhm.
I think that eh, there's a really interesting dynamic. So like the more we talk about it, like the more there are pieces of this that I liked a lot. For one, this episode kind of resets what I had been saying about episodes 1 and 2, and then it felt a little muddled in 3, which is the show is pivoting on Dany for sure now. It's very clear that she's going a little bit off
Yeah. She's
off a
getting those
rocker.
crazy eyes.
Hard
Yeah.
turn,
So,
yeah.
but I feel like it was such a cool, nuanced way to show it, to show her sitting there in the middle of this party. Everyone's having a great time and talking and smiling and laughing. Her people, the people in the north, everyone's doing great. And there she is sitting by herself, just stewing with her own thoughts, unable to
Mhm.
take part in what was going on, and showing that really self-imposed isolation and how that was sending her mind to dark places of feeling like, how could she ever have learned to get along with people like this?
Yeah.
What in her life would have prepared her for this? And so we can be sympathetic that she doesn't know how to handle
Yeah.
herself in this sort of situation.
Because she was isolated and on the run her whole life.
Right. And so we can understand why she feels socially, this not able to participate. And yet, what does that feeling do to someone with her sense of, destiny and privilege and entitlement and all of that sort of thing, where she's looking at this and what she is seeing is, they love him, they don't love me. And now that he's told me what he's told me, all it takes is a sentence from him and everyone turns on me. I have no one left. And that's how she's starting to feel. And you can see that play out on her face in that scene, but in this really subtle subtext way that I thought was
Mhm.
actually really cool.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was really well done.
The other thing to remember is all her friends are dead.
Mm.
You know?
She literally just lit Jorah on fire.
And that is like the last. I mean, I guess Miss Sandy, but I think I think Miss Sandy and Grey Worm were off together. So I mean, like she knows she's not important to her in that way. They're not friends.
Mhm.
There's a bond, but it's not her friend. Every time she's had a friend, they die.
Well, and to be honest, though, she has never had a friend. She
Yeah.
has had subjects
Yeah.
that she can become more familiar with.
Yeah.
She's never had a friend.
So Paulette
She's been the
Jackson,
queen to everyone she's ever known.
Yeah.
Paulette says, in addition to the way you were describing
Yeah.
Daenerys by herself, drinking her coffee.
Yeah.
When everyone's drinking wine, Daenerys is drinking coffee.
I thought the statement from the producers which was really great, which was to say, of course, it was a mistake to see the craft services coffee cup sitting on the table because, of course, she ordered an herbal tea.
I've seen a lot of really fun memes about how they misspelled her name.
Of course. I loved Jamie, Tyrion, Brienne, and Pod playing a drinking game
Yeah.
It was fun
It's a callback.
until Tyrion ruins it. But
Yeah, I was pretty.
I have a theory about that. So a lot of people are like, why is Tyrion all of a sudden being a dick? And I think that he doesn't see Brienne like he sees other women. I think he sees her as one of the guys and
Mhm.
doesn't know her well enough to know that that would be a hot button.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I could imagine that being true is that not only does he see her like one of the guys, but maybe even thinks that's what she wants to be perceived as.
Yeah.
We just went through the whole thing of like making her a knight. Like, isn't that what she wanted to be inducted into this? So I could see that. But the thing is, like, a really fun, pleasant scene just hits clunk
Yep.
when he says that question. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is this? A freaking Breakfast Club? What did you just do, Tyrion?
Yeah, seriously.
You know what though?
Right.
I think I would point out that she said you were married before. And I think that we've learned over the seasons that is really an Achilles heel for him. So when she says you were married, that was like, oh shit, this
his
is
look at
real.
Jamie, like, God damn you.
And Jamie
And
just
Jamie's like, I didn't say it.
He's just like, you have to drink. Like, come on, it's a game, drink. So I think he was probably a dick, but I think he was mildly like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's harder than like if she had said,
drunk and competitive, and that kind of stung. So he lashed out. I could see that.
That's how I took it, anyways. It was like, if he'd asked anything else, I wouldn't have made that excuse for him. But his marriage, he was young, he was stupid, and he knows the real deal now, but that doesn't mean it doesn't still pack a punch.
Yeah.
And then the script, they just really wanted Jamie to chase her.
Well, that was I think the spell is broken for me a little bit because I start looking at every decision not in terms of why the character would do this or that, but why the writers would choose to have a character do this or that. And the reason they would do that is because it introduces the questions so Jamie can go after her and then blah 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 blah. And that's why. But the thing is, like, it's filmed in such a way that it's like everyone at the table feels the sour note that just got hit, right? Like it's not played like it's a fun, harmless question and then everyone's surprised. Like everyone's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. And to back that up, so he says you're a virgin. Pod looks at Brienne and then Pod starts drinking.
Yeah, like, oh,
I'm going to take that as Pod saying, no, that's me. Which everyone's like, oh, but didn't he with the women in the but they never charged.
Well, I
could see him saying it because who the frick cares if you're a virgin or not,
I thought it was a much simpler thought it was a much simpler joke than that, which was, holy shit, he just asked that and I'm broken.
Yeah, that's what I've heard people say.
That felt much more.
We're still having fun, right?
Yeah, it was like, oh boy, because the thing is, I feel like it just didn't feel natural for Tyrion to switch gears from fun, silly, questions like that are personal, but not like Jamie even challenges him on it. Like, that's not the type of question that we're asking, because, it's things you've done in the past. And then he elaborates to say, I'm saying that it's a thing that you have never done. And like it's not even in the spirit of the game.
Yeah.
So I just really frustrated. That was one of the moments that really was kind of a clunker for me. Like,
it kind of took me out of it.
Mike McCauley says, I took it as all virgins playing the game drink.
Yeah, I guess so. But like, it's.
And FYI, I'm sure everybody listening knows, like, this is the stupidest thing to shame somebody for.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, like, like the weirdness of it is that it puts Tyrion in the role of the asshole who's like, well, it's just asking questions. I don't see what the big deal is. I wasn't shaming her. I was just asking questions. We're playing a game. Like he doesn't actually understand why that could be a touchy thing, right? Like
Yep.
he's usually smoother than that. And they didn't play him as so drunk that he was making that kind of mistake.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like a natural dialogue to me. It felt like setup for what they wanted to have happen later, which I was pretty well. I mean, we'll talk more about that.
They could have
as things
gotten
went
there
along.
a better way. They really could have.
Yeah.
So Paulette says, I still blame the writers for turning Brienne's virtue into something she's supposed to be ashamed of. She should have said, damn straight, I'm a virgin. No man is good enough. And you know what? That made me think of when she spoke up for Jamie, she talked about how he defended her virtue. So she's already spoken publicly about her virtue. So like, at first I was thinking, well, I understand why she feels shame, not that she should, but because she was teased her whole life about, not being able, not being the type of person men want. But now that I'm thinking about the fact that she's spoken publicly about her virtue, it actually seems more in character to me that Brienne would be like, well, yeah, I'm honorable. I'm not, I don't know.
I'm not sure I agree. I think it's been clear from Brienne's character all along that this is a touchy subject for her.
Oh yeah.
And
well, I thought even
the
you danced with Renly was a little close to her touchy subject.
Yeah. And so I felt like Tyrion is usually has a better read on people, and so asking a question that had like. I think everyone watching heard him ask that and knew immediately she's not going to react to that question well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we all know that, then how does Tyrion not read that
Right.
So, and the thing is too, that like, it's one thing to say that being a virgin is not something to be ashamed of, because it's not, but that doesn't mean that it's something that everyone is comfortable with. Like everyone might have different reasons for why that's true, right? And not everyone is going to feel comfortable talking about what those reasons are in mixed company. And so it's not.
And based on your situation, your comfort level may change. So like in the middle of a drinking game, you might not be ready to talk about this. You may not be prepared for that. And like you said, it's
especially
very Breakfast Club, because if you're, the whole thing in the Breakfast Club is, if I say I'm a virgin, I'm a prude. If I say I've had sex, then I'm a slut. That no matter what the answer is, you're doomed.
Yeah.
And that's what like a drinking game ends up being.
And yeah, so it was frustrating. And the one recap I read, first of all, I was kind of surprised, didn't indicate had no questions at all about why he would ask that, but suggested that what he was trying to do is like set things up for Jamie, which I thought was such a bizarre take on the season, on that scene.
No.
But the thing is,
ever worked.
Well, but then the scene later when they're talking about afterwards, it's practically like they're trying to confirm that was what was going on, even though it doesn't play like that at all in the first scene. So
I don't agree with that assessment. Teal Wolf says the only thing I remotely considered was Tyrion being offended by the previous marriage question, but it's a stretch. And or rather, I'm sorry, it's a stretch.
And the thing is, if that's what they wanted the read to be, they
could have made
it badly, because they did not connect those dots for us, the viewer.
And we all know that Peter Dinklage is a good enough actor that could convey that to us.
Yeah.
If that was the point.
Yeah.
It's weird in the scene. It feels like he turns on a dime and changes the tone deliberately for no apparent reason. That's what it feels like in the scene. And it's directed that way. And so I wonder, was there some dialogue that got cut out? who even knows? But at
Well,
this,
I mean,
yeah,
he's never really had to play wingman for Jamie before because he's only ever banged his sister.
Yeah.
So, like, he's just not really good at it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
if anyone
it
should
was
be feeling
effective.
shame.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it
And
was
for-
effective. They banged, but it was just wasn't pretty getting there.
But I also don't think that they banged because they brought up her virginity. And
Well,
like, because I read
no.
somewhere somebody
No, no,
said,
no.
"Oh, Jamie, here's you're a virgin. I'll fix that." Just like you want to be a knight, I'll fix that. No, I think it was more born out of jealousy. Like when Tormund came over, that was the big thing.
Right, but she was already leaving when Tormund
Oh
came
yeah,
over.
she was leaving. But
Yeah, so I think that it was a complicated muddle of both and all of those things together. But what it makes me feel part of the reason that I think I'm frustrated with this episode is that there are so many things in it where I feel like I can't keep my brain in the mode of why would character A do this? All I can think of is why would the writers make him say that?
Mhm.
yep.
And that's frustrating because this is a show that I've enjoyed all of this time where sure occasionally various behind the scenes factors come in and out here and there and you understand it, but by and large I feel like I'm able to stay immersed, but I've really struggled with that this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Mike Paulette says Bazinga Vib. Mike McCauley says she always seems squeamish about her sexuality throughout the show. Oh, I always assumed she was a virgin. There's one thing about assuming and then having it called out, I think. And then I was under the impression that she had always been picked on about her not being feminine enough and not showing any attraction to men. And yeah, I think it's more explicit in the books, but I mean, I've always identified with Brienne because how she was treated by men while she was growing up was very similar to how I was treated. So like, yeah, I mean, like it's really hard to trust and it's really hard to talk about these things. And a drinking game is a stupid time to talk about it.
Right. Well, and the thing is too that like as far as not showing any attraction to men, I mean,
Renly.
she was in love with Renly.
Yeah.
And also she did previously tell the story about how she was at this, the Westeros equivalent of a debutante ball or whatever. And all of the young men were treating her very nicely. And then only for her to discover that it was like a group joke.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that it was, and that's part of why she fell in love with Renly was because he was the only one that was like actually nice to her and told her like, who cares what they think? They're stupid. And so like, I feel like canonically she is attracted to men, at least to some degree.
Agreed.
But that doesn't mean she's comfortable with any of those feelings.
Agreed.
Right. Yeah. And we had debated her and Jamie way back in those seasons when they spent a lot of time together, whether they were in love or not. And a lot of arguments for them having strong feelings for each other. And,
but
confirmed.
So she's already leaving when Tormund shows up. And I was frustrated. So
and he's got such poor timing. He was ready to make his move. He's got his lines.
Well, and the thing is too, that like, I was annoyed that they made him so over the top drunk and like the joke about which one of you crapped my pants, like that sort of thing. Like
I love that joke.
That was a great joke.
It's funny, but I'm just saying that they definitely deliberately had Tormund in this scene be the anti-Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In a way that I was watching and saying, oh, well, okay, I guess which side of this shipping war the show has decided to take here.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
here's what I'll say to everyone, that what I said to everyone before we started recording. I called it.
Yep.
I called it. I said I could see the ship with Brienne going either way. But if she goes with Tormund, that's a happy story. If she goes with Jamie, that's a sad story.
Yep.
And so I'm
Yeah.
not happy to have been proven right about that, but I did say so.
Yeah.
And I really think that I still think, and maybe this is more headcanon than anything else, that Tormund wasn't there to make his move. He just keeps waiting for her to make a move. Like, I feel like he wants her to tell him that it's time. Like, he keeps flirting and showing his affections. But I
Yeah.
just feel like he kept waiting for her to do something. Because,
Like,
that's what
yeah.
happened with the giant, and that's what happened with the bear. They all
Well,
made the first move.
And it's
Mhm.
almost like he was not ever actually as aggressive and creepy as some people tried to make it seem like he was, just because he clearly showed his attentions.
Yeah.
And she never actually told him to go away. She was a little creeped out, but he like, so we talked about that, and it's like we
Yeah.
could say there's some blurry lines there, but he never
I s-
actually made the first move.
Yep.
I
Yep.
struggle to think of a single scene or moment or flash of her eyes where she looked interested in Tormund.
That's true.
Right.
Like, she never showed interest in him at all. We were all
Mhm.
smitten with him being smitten by her. So
Yeah.
I never saw that relationship going that way. Unfortunately, I think you're absolutely right. She would have been happy with him if she could have
Right.
allowed
And
herself to be with him, but she would never be with Tormund.
right.
Yeah.
If there was any interest, she would have shown it.
Right.
I mean,
But again,
imagine how much it took for her to get over the fact that Jamie's a kingslayer and an oath breaker. Then she has to get over the fact that he's a wildling.
Exactly. That's my point, though.
They have no honor, according to Westerosi.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like she showed no interest in Tormund, and because they didn't write her that way.
Yep.
Yep.
Paulette says, well, that's what happened with the serving girl. She picked Tormund up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, he was.
I thought it was hilarious him going and crying
Yeah.
to the hound when they
He
panned
pined-
over, and he's just
he
like,
pined
good
for
God.
Ygritte, but he pined for Ygritte, but he never made a move with her either.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was all maybe, oh man, John, you're with my girl. It's like, well,
Say
did
something.
Ygritte know that you liked her?
Mm.
Well, but yeah.
It was Orell that wanted a grit, not Tormund.
Oh, I thought Tormund did too.
Tormund
Ah,
was
whatever.
like, no, hey, good for you, boy. Here's
Oh,
what you
okay.
need to do.
You're right. It was Orell.
Yeah.
All right, never
Tormund-
mind.
Tormund was just fine, though. Can we agree on that? He was just fine.
Oh yeah, he got over it. Yeah.
He
Right,
recovered well.
Well, yes, I agree,
fine.
but I also felt like, oh, let's have him be sad for 15 seconds and then immediately fine as he goes off with another girl was the
Yeah.
writer solving the shipping war, even though they were about to blast it into a million pieces in
Yeah.
3 scenes later. So
This was the first time that I ever, watching this show, thought for a second, oh my God, I feel like I'm on Saved by the Bell, or like
yeah,
90210 or something, where they're in the peach pit and they're just like, oh yeah, she's with me. Like, that was very shallow. It's not what I've become used to with the show.
mhm.
It was disappointing, and it was all really hollow. They definitely made it light with Tormund making his jokes and stuff like that. And then of course crying to the hound. That was delicious. It was so fucking funny. But it really was just overall just like a disappointing whole setup from the drinking game, the mention of virginity on. It was just really
Yeah. I liked the drinking game scene up to that point.
Up to that
Yep.
point.
Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah.
So one other thing about when Tormund gets his consolation prize or whatever. Ugh.
Mhm.
So the name of the girl that picks him up is Willa,
Mm-hmm.
which is the name of the woman that Robert believed to be John's mother.
Hmm.
Now we know that they reuse a lot of names in Game of Thrones. So I mean, I just thought that was really funny. And then the woman that the Hound dismisses, she ends up going with Pod and another lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I heard an interesting theory that is purely speculative, but I kind of like it, which is that Sansa sent the 2 girls over to them, not because of Tormund so much because of Sandor, who is brooding by
Mhm.
himself, drinking by himself, and just like,
Mm.
let's try to head off any trouble that's going to cause.
I could see that. I could see
Yeah.
that.
And
I
then
mean, there's
after he
nothing to
chases her
tell us.
away, yeah,
Yeah.
that's when she goes over and talks to him, right?
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, Teal Wolf
Um,
says, yeah, the writers wanted to shame Tormund for being crass. He's not a bad dude. It's like, yes, and they made him extra crass in this scene just to
Yep.
sort of drive home
Yeah.
why Jamie's choosing
Yeah.
Jamie, or Rand's choosing Jamie instead.
Mm-hmm.
When she said her name was Willa, for some reason, I immediately assumed she was a Frey. I don't know why, but 'cause they all have W names. I thought I
Yeah.
remembered another Willa Frey.
I feel
There
like
was
one of
probably a
yeah,
Willa Frey.
Walda.
But it's probably a
Yeah.
common enough name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now in the books, Willa is Edric Storm's wet nurse. Or sorry, Edric Dane's wet nurse, and also Jon Snow's wet nurse, and that's where that all comes again. So I can't imagine that this girl that's somehow in the north
No.
is
Yeah.
also related to this Willa that was in Storm's End and blah blah blah.
nah.
But
Yeah.
I think
There's only
it's
so many
more
names.
of an Easter egg than anything
Yeah.
else.
There's only so many names.
Yeah.
So we've got the Hound and Sansa having their conversation,
Yeah.
which
actually
was
like
pretty
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
You've changed, little bird. None of this
I-
would have happened if you'd left me.
I liked it
That's awesome.
mostly. I've heard some mixed takes about her line about like, if I'd gone with you, I would have been the little bird forever, or whatever. You know what?
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
have remember the exact wording, but like I've heard some people complain that makes it feel like she's somehow like it's like playing into the trope that the only way for women characters to be tough or interesting is if they've had terrible trauma happen to them.
Mm.
I didn't. The line felt a little odd to me when she said it, but I didn't react strongly to it. But I'm not spoiling Avengers Endgame, except just to say, in the most general terms, that there's, I think, a question about how people deal with trauma in that movie that some people felt was really problematic, and yet when I watched it, I felt like I was really moved by it. So it just goes to show that when you're going to deal with those types of story points, people have had terrible things happen to them and how they process that, people are not all the same. And so almost any depiction you choose is going to feel wrong or off to some people.
I am probably being very nice and giving them the writers a lot more credit. But again, this may just be my headcanon. The way that I felt that I would still be a little bird is kind of open-ended, in the sense that the Hound may be looking at her thinking, yeah, I kind of wish you were. She might be thinking, this is something that will make it easier for him. This is something he'll want to hear, instead of me having to deal with the fact of everything that happened to me. Not that I don't think she was lying, but it was very much it wasn't, oh, well, it all worked out well for the end. It was more, I'd still be that girl. And just kind of open end and find this'll end the conversation without us getting too dark, because that's not where I wanted this to go.
Yeah, I saw it as just a pretty generic, it made me who I am, and this is who I need to be right now. And what I got from his look was, without all that blah blah blah, his look to me was I would have protected you. Yeah, you could have still been that little bird, and I would have protected you.
I felt like she wasn't telling him what she thought he wanted to hear, though. It was almost it almost felt like the reverse to me, because he was she was trying to shut down a pretty toxic way of thinking, which is that like somehow like you were too afraid of me to accept my help back then, and then all these terrible things happened to you. If you had just come with me, it would have all been better and all these bad things wouldn't have happened to you. And it's kind of almost this sort of mean-spirited, like, why didn't you pick me, sort of spiteful
Almost
energy.
making this her fault.
I
Yeah,
told you
yeah,
so. Huh.
yeah. And so she's kind of basically just saying, like, the things that happened, and I am here, and here we are, and so let's not waste time
Yeah.
I
No,
felt
talking
like
about.
she was claiming ownership over them, I feel
Yeah.
like, and no longer choosing to be a victim over it. I felt like
Right.
it was kind of her reclaiming power in a
Mhm.
sense,
Yeah,
or at least
I agree.
trying to, because she's been through some shit.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I feel like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I that's how it felt to me. But I have just seen that some people reacted very negatively to that because they felt it was more like, because it is kind of a tropey character thing where sometimes male writers think that women characters can only be tough and strong if they've had terrible traumas happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Teal Wolf says, I drew parallels between Sansa and Bran, saying that bad things happened, but it brought us here and we're likely alive because of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. I feel like it's
Yeah.
it's like what Bran says to Theon, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and if we want to dissect it, if she left with Sandor, would she still be alive? Would she have been able to escape all that pain? I don't think so, because he almost died and he went through hell.
Mhm.
And, you know,
But he would have taken her away,
yeah,
and they would
but
have been
at the same
together
time,
Mhm.
there would have been other traumas. Like,
Right,
there's
exactly.
no-
There's no
That's-
guarantee.
yeah,
That's kind of what I was imagining she was going to say before she actually,
Yeah.
said what she did, which was just to say, he's going to say, if you'd gone with me, none of that would have happened. And then she'd say, no, just any number of other horrible things that
Yeah.
could have happened.
exactly. And
Mm.
honestly, like, I think had she said that, it would have, again, gone to a place that she didn't want it to go, because
Right.
then it would have been, well, what do you mean I can't protect you? And then it becomes
Right,
a
right,
whole
exactly. She doesn't want to.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to go down that road. She wants it to be a matter of saying, it's a waste of time to
Yeah.
bemoan what could have happened in some alternate timeline where I made a different decision years ago.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Yep.
Yeah, so I like that element of it. But I guess what I was just sort of wanting to get to is that because, people's traumas and how they process those is very personal and can vary a lot from one person to another. It's difficult in any story to really approach that, because no matter how you have this one character deal with it, some people are going to say, what? That's not how it works at all. That's terrible. I'm angry and I feel rejected. And other people are going to say, no, I feel very seen. That's exactly how it was for me.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
And so it's definitely a very challenging thing for the show to approach. And so I kind of, even though we've given the writers a pretty hard time so far this episode, I want to say it's like they've not always been great on this subject, but I felt like this one worked for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think this might be like my favorite scene of the show, of this episode, just because I have the least problems with it.
Hmm.
Well, why did it take till episode 4 for Sandor and Sansa to have a conversation, though?
Well, they were busy.
I know, but still.
There's a lot going
Things
on.
going on.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, I have always been a Sansan fan.
Yeah.
Another from Paulette, another G. If only we had more episodes to explore this conversation better. Oh,
Right.
wait.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. We already touched on Gendry giving Arya his news and her reaction. Is there any other thoughts on that?
Yes. So, clearly Gendry has no clue what Arya wants.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He was in his own head thinking the only thing stopping him from being with Arya was the fact that he was a bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My hope is that he realizes it and says, Arya, I don't want it. I'm going to reject the offer. We don't have to get married. Can I still travel with you? That's what I want to see.
I really liked this scene actually because of both of him being kind of, you know, a little dopey and lovesick,
Mhm.
frankly, right? And also just kind of high on the new epiphany of I've just been made a lord, and not just a lord, but Lord of Storm's End. Like, and also like this is, you know, everything feels like it's, you know, everything's coming up Millhouse or, you know, Gendry, right? And so like I liked that she's very happy for him,
Mm-hmm.
but she shuts down, you know, the that whole proposition like gently but unequivocally of saying, no, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that. That's not what I want. That's not who I am. That's not me.
And I love how she did it. Like, I think
Mhm.
we all could have predicted her reaction was going to
Yeah.
be no.
Mhm.
But I like that she's like, she kisses him, she hugs him, she's very happy,
Mhm.
but it's just, I am so happy for you.
Mhm.
That's not me. You know, it's totally it's not you, it's me kind of a
Right.
thing, you know, and she did it in such a way where there was no like ifs, ands, or buts. There was no opening that maybe in the future or whatever. It was just, these are the cold hard facts, but I really do care for you.
It was more of a gently delivered reminder because she has
Yeah.
been saying that to him, I'm not a lady, since he first discovered that she was a Stark.
Mhm.
Arya Stark. The first thing she said is, I'm not a lady. Stop calling me that. So
That's their
Mhm.
running gag, right?
yeah, and he just found out that it wasn't shtick. It wasn't just because she didn't want to be called that because of whatever reason. It was because she literally doesn't see herself in that role.
Mhm.
So that had to suck for him to put those two pieces
Yeah.
together right there.
He thought it was
Yeah.
just their little joke.
Yeah.
I will roll my eyes just a little bit of the at the cheesiness of he's wandering around looking for her. Whoop! Almost gets hit by an arrow. Oh. And I was just like, oh, come on, guys, come on.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah,
better than
like
that.
she's gonna
I mean,
practice into a hallway.
right, yeah, like
That
it
just
was
doesn't make sense.
like, yeah. So I didn't have a big problem with it, but I did roll my eyes.
By
Yeah,
the
my
way,
assumption was it was
Kaylee,
the same place that they found her before practicing.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
it looked like the same location.
it just looked in reverse. Like she was
Yeah.
shooting into the hallway instead of
Mhm.
shooting at her target.
Well, right, they had him come in from a
Yeah.
different angle.
So, by the way, I just have to say, this entire cast, I have had my focus on Chooch because now she just moved, but Kaylee has been
Huh?
in the bottom corner. There she is, and it has been so much fun just
you
watching her
stitching?
chill.
I just retweeted just shortly before we started recording a tweet that had a little video where it shows a guy sleeping on a couch, and there's this little puppy that's curled up in like this like 3 inches of space between the guy and the edge of the couch, and then an older dog, golden retriever, comes in, is like sniffing back and forth. You can see that the dog has carried in a dog bed, and then the dog sort of nervously, gently pulls the puppy off the couch, deposits him on the dog bed, and then proceeds to climb up onto the couch to take that same 3-inch spot.
I love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I just retweeted that. Everyone, you watch that like when we're done.
Yeah.
You have homework.
Yeah.
For everyone that is upset about Ghost,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
homework.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I forgot to mention earlier. That was one of my predictions, was maybe they're keeping Ghost around to be like a significance of magic leaving the world. And no.
No.
They were already just done with him.
Yeah.
I
But
was
you know,
wrong.
like I said it already, but I am frankly happy to see Ghost go off to the north, where I feel like he will be okay up there.
Yeah.
He will not get killed up there. He will be able to live a life in a place where he belongs up there.
With his one ear.
Mm.
Gouge in his side that nobody decided to bandage.
So the next big scene was Jamie coming to check on Brienne. And
Mhm.
I've never slept with a knight before.
I was so annoyed at his
high school-esque moves.
Yes.
Like assumption.
Gross.
It's so hot in here.
Yeah, like I was expecting him to do like a yawn and stretch next.
Right, yeah. Gosh, it's so hot in here. Oh, it's so hard to untie this with my golden hand. Oh.
He's never needed any game.
Yeah, well, because he's
Gross.
only ever slept with sisters, but it was so bad. And it was just
Yeah.
like, and of all the times to sleep with him, it's like, oh, when he just assumes I'll sleep with him. Okay.
Right. The pity.
Well,
party. All right.
honestly, because I'm on the record as having
Yeah.
been a pro team Tormund feeling, but I was willing to say, okay, the show's made its choice. That's fine. We're going to do this. Jamie cares for her. He's going to take care of her. It's fine. This is a little cheesy, but okay.
Yeah.
And then, we have that scene where it's a little awkward, but I liked actually that it didn't make her as awkward as it might have, because as sensitive a subject as it was and as inexperienced as she was, she knew she did want this. And once it was clear why he was there, even though he was being awkward, she was kind of like, all right, I'm making the decision. We're going to do this. And she's just straightforward. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, I will give credit for her side of it. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I hold higher standards for Brienne, but at the same time, I do understand where she's coming from. And honestly, living in the life that she did, I completely understand. Everything makes sense. But at the same time,
I was also grateful for the fade to black, because but also
and here is when he kept asking questions about Tormund, and this is where the jealousy part came to me. Like that he was really here more because he's like, well, if I don't do something, Tormund might scoop her up.
Yeah.
Which again, is this Saved by the Bell?
Well, here's the thing though, that we can't not look at this scene in the rearview mirror now that we know what we know, which is that Jamie's a piece of shit and he doesn't deserve her, and he treated her extremely badly, and I hate him now. So that's it.
Yeah.
He's worse than Parker.
Yeah.
In Buffy. He's worse than Parker in Buffy. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It is literally the worst thing he could have done to her.
Yeah.
Because it is making him believe I'm different than all those other guys. And part of the reason that I'm different is because you made me different, because you're special, and you're the one that has convinced me to come away from all of these terrible things in my past.
Yeah.
Because I love you. Oh, by the way, I'm going to sleep with you once and then leave in the middle of the freaking night to go back to my sister because I'm actually awful. And here I'm going to say all these mean things to you so that you won't follow me.
Mike McCauley says the whole banging someone you know has a thing for their sibling was really awkward.
And so, a lot of, there's people who want to defend Jamie and try to say, oh, he's just doing the thing like Arya did to Nymeria. Is like he's actually going to go kill Cersei, and he just doesn't want Brienne to follow him because he cares about her and doesn't want her to get in danger. And I'm saying she's not an animal; she's a human freaking being.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if he actually cared about her, he would be honest with her, and he's not. Yeah. And I personally think that he's not going to King's Landing to be with his sister. I have hope that he's going there to kill her because he knows he's not a good person.
I think they totally framed it as, and that's what I don't understand. They get this news of the new terrible thing that Cersei's done.
Yeah.
And what? He's suddenly hard and he knows she's what he wants. Like, there's no, I don't understand why this news is what changes his mind and he has to go to her.
So I think
other than he's going to go kill her.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know why we're supposed to believe that makes him in love with her again.
I don't want to talk over Viv, but I have more on that.
No, I think that when we did the rewatch, because I was like you, I was like, I don't even understand where that came from, but it was the look on his face. He really seemed to absorb it when Sansa looked at him and said, I hoped to be there to see your sister be executed, and it seems like I won't, or something along those lines. And his face in that scene, it was like, I thought, oh, this all just really became very real to him. Like,
Mhm.
this is like shit is really going down and I'm not there. And I don't know what he intends, whether it's to bang Cersei again and protect the baby or to kill her. I don't know what his intentions are, but he left our girl in the middle of the night crying
Yeah.
and screaming in the goddamn driveway. And that's some
They only
fucking
had a
bullshit right
conversation
there.
because she woke up.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
she
He would've
caught him
just
sneaking
left.
off. I
Yeah.
know.
would've
It's
just
just the
left.
worst.
No
So-
note, no
Yeah.
nothing.
It's like Maury Povich, but worse.
Yeah, so as far as the characterization of it, like what's going on in Jamie's head, I feel like, first of all, is he going there to be with her or to kill her? Like, well, the show's obviously playing Lady or the Tiger with that right now.
Yeah.
Like it's deliberately not telling us.
Yeah.
And frankly, because I think Jamie does not have a clear idea in his own head anyway.
Yeah.
Even if he's planning to kill her, I think I can follow the characterization of it, which is to say, the man he would need to be to stay with Brienne, as much as she believes that he is a good man, he doesn't believe
Yeah.
it.
That you could see that when she says you're a good
Yeah.
man, and his face changes.
Yeah. He knows, first of all, that there had been things that he hadn't told even her.
Yeah.
And so that's why he spits them out at her when she says that. But he has got this self-loathing going on that is why it ties directly back into the conversation with Tyrion in, I think, episode 2, which is to say, he tries to brush aside, like, how could I have known how awful Cersei was? But Tyrion is like, come on, you always knew,
You
Yeah.
knew.
but you loved her anyway. And I think that we're tying directly into that
Yeah.
in the sense that whatever his intentions are with Cersei, whether it's some sort of like, I think it is not even a coherent plan so much as it is this thing like, that's where he belongs, for better or worse. Whatever's going to happen, he should be with her, not necessarily like romantically, but like he can't let her get killed by someone else halfway across the continent when he's up here with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what he can't bear, is the idea that her fate is out of his control. Like that he has no say in what's going to happen. And I think that it's a self-loathing thing, which is the more she believes in him, the more he hates himself.
Mhm.
And that's why he can't stay. So frankly, on the one hand, I can totally buy the characterization of why Jamie would do this. And yet that does not make it a good thing to do or him any less of a piece of shit. He's saying, I'm not a good person. I'm saying, no, you're not.
Right.
No,
Right. I
you're not.
agree. Yep.
You have some noble inclinations, and perhaps you could eventually get there. But this is sure not something that a good person does, what you're doing right now. If we want to say it's about your actions and not some inherent quality to you, we could say what you're doing right now, not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that his intention is to go and kill Cersei, but I don't think she should ever take him back after that. I don't care what his intentions are.
Mhm.
After he did this to her, there's no coming back from that.
Yeah.
You could never trust somebody again after that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so Mike says, I would imagine that if most of the sex you've had in your life was with your sister, deflowering a woman may have shaken him enough to make him bolt. Maybe. And
Paulette,
then, you're going to read Paulette.
Paulette adds that Jamie thinks Cersei's baby is his, which I would imagine it seems clear at this point. Qyburn gave like a vague head nod, so maybe she's actually pregnant, whatever. Okay, fine.
Or he says it to make Euron believe.
Yeah, although because I think she is at this point, because I feel like I see the shape of the next plot line with that coming
Mhm.
up, which, this jumps way ahead, but Tyrion mentioning it, you see her face because her face changed when he mentions that because she's told Euron it's his, but he didn't sleep with her until after Jaime had left.
Mhm.
So I think she was having this sudden like, oh, is Euron going to put that together?
Yeah.
Because that could be really bad. So I think that might be something that they raise next episode, but we'll see. What I will say is that I will be so pissed if Brienne is pregnant now from Jaime.
Oh
Ooh,
gosh, I hope
wow.
not.
I hope not. I
Ugh.
hope that is just a horrible, horrible thought that.
Well, we all
But,
know
like-
that Jaime doesn't know how to not make that happen, and it's not like she's.
Yeah.
I can't
So-
imagine that she's learned.
Fingers
Aw.
crossed that that's just some nightmare, darkest timeline, and it won't be what
Yeah.
happens. But I am starting to have fears of those sorts, these horrific visions of Jaime is going to go off. The show is going to play it like a twist that he's actually there to kill Cersei. He is going to die in the aftermath, and then everyone will be sad that poor Jaime went off and died. But at least we have this to remember him, and I will barf.
And
Yeah.
Paulette
So-
had the same terrible thought.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. Now that's all I can think about, and I really hope they don't do that.
Yeah.
I already have a problem with like pregnancies just thrown in just to manipulate characters.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
I just
you could always worry about Arya and Danny too.
Well, that's true.
well, Danny, on the one hand, we're told,
Yeah,
Which
there was a
means-
whole like mystic prophecy thing, supposedly.
but on the other hand,
It was
Yeah.
tied
supposed
into
to
the
be
cult
the-
returning primarily,
Yeah.
though, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
and then with Arya, I don't know. She knows about death. She can handle this.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. But so Mike says Cersei has plenty of experience deceiving the real father. Euron is no different. To some extent, I agree, because the truth is that all she would have to say based on what Tyrion actually said is it must have been a spy. Someone
Yeah.
found out. Tyrion found out. That's all it was. Tyrion is, adept
Did you
at
not see
sneaking through the
Varys right
shadows.
next to him?
Yeah. So I think that it would be an easy way to resolve if everyone was behaving in actual intelligent ways, but who knows? But yeah, so I was, as angry as I was at Jaime, and as much as my heart ached for Brienne, this was another example of me kind of getting kicked out of the moment a little bit and saying, this is the writer's fault. It's
Yep.
not Jaime because he's a bad person. It's the writers made this happen, and now I'm mad at them.
Yep.
And
If they wanted Jaime to have a freak out, they would have done it the next morning. They wouldn't have had everybody leave and then have him freak out later. It just
Meh.
all of this.
What's the point of having a redemption arc if you're just going to destroy it?
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem is that they think that they haven't. They're going to have the reveal that he actually went south to kill Cersei, and that's going to somehow, in their mind, prove that he really did get redeemed, and somehow that means that what he did to Brienne was okay. And yeah, so that's my fear.
Yes,
So-
exactly. Chush, can you do that again, please?
You know what? You know what I wouldn't mind is if the story does play out that way, but he survives, and then he comes back and he says, there, I've done it. I've done what I had to do, and I've come back to be with you. And then she punches him in the face and goes off to rides up north.
Yes, me
Performance.
too. That's what
I'll
I'm
be okay with
Nice.
that. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If we're cleared with there, we can jump to another bedroom, to
Mhm.
John's bedroom.
Just one last thing. Mike says that he's with Christiana about the writers. I felt the same way about what they did to Jaime. And
Yeah.
Paulette says, yes, please, to our theory.
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Nice.
Chooch.
Oh, well, Danny comes to check on John
Mhm.
to see where he's at.
The only
Yeah.
thing I liked about this is just she asks if he's drunk
Hmm.
because she's like, I want to have a real conversation. Are you drunk? No. wobble
Mm.
a little.
No.
We could quibble about like whether we like the broad strokes of the storytelling in terms of where they're taking various characters, but in and of itself, given where the story is right now, I actually thought this scene was pretty good in the sense
yeah.
that she is we show her mental state being a little bit precarious here in that she feels like she's in trouble here because if he actually decided to move against her, not only would that be something she would actually have a really hard time putting down if he tried to really move against her, but also she has legitimately caught feelings for him. And now that's messy and she's bummed about that. And he might try to usurp her what she sees as her destiny. And she doesn't know what to do about it because she's not actually all that skilled on a person-to-person level, socially, that is. And so she's kind of flailing a little bit. And she
give
is
her credit.
begging him.
I give her credit for the fact that she says it doesn't matter what you want.
No, yeah.
It matters what they want. If they want you to be king, you didn't want to be Lord Commander. You became Lord Commander. You didn't want to be king in the North. You became the king in the North. And that his desire has never played a part. And by the way, they did mention the whole John coming back to life in the drinking scene, and nobody seemed to blink about that.
I think that has sort of just become sort of like legendary sorts of things where it's like the guy, I caught a fish this big but it got away, so I can't prove it, but
and it's from Tormund, who suckled a giant's teeth, so
I think a lot of people probably assume it's like metaphorical, like he suffered a tremendous wound and everyone thought he was going to die. And I think a lot of people think that, but it's also true that they all just fought a army of fucking zombies. So I am very sweary this evening.
I'm right there with you, Christiana. I find my cousin a lot. So Paulette says, I find it interesting that neither of them have mentioned that she's his aunt, not just related, but a generation apart. I think they're not mentioning it because they don't want to think that closely about it. Yeah.
And it's really a visual representation of what they, Varys and Tyrion explicitly say, that it's not really a big deal for Targaryens, but it's a big deal for the North, which clearly John gets squinky in the middle of makeout time.
And let's not forget that Daenerys grew up thinking she was going to marry her brother.
Yeah.
Well, and it's one thing to say they are a generation apart, like by the family tree, but they're actually almost the same age.
Yeah. I
think she's older than him by just like a little bit, like less than a year, maybe, right?
And I'm going to put this out there that if you didn't grow up together, like it's weird, but at the same time, like you didn't know you were family. Like I don't think
it's your dad's sister, bro.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like
it's your dad's sister, bro.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is they had sex, they fell in love with each other, they had no knowledge of this. And finding out this information, it's hard to deal with.
Yeah.
But it's not like they went into it knowing they were related, knowing there'd be a chance of it. And it's not like what the original plan for the books, which never happened, thank God. And he said that he won't do it, where Jon and Arya were supposed to end up together. So that would have been a problem. So but it's we're not. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying
if they end up together. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying it. It's gonna piss me off.
Right. Yeah, I don't mind it being complex emotionally for them. I mean, if they fell in love with each other before knowing that, then those feelings don't tear out clean. Right.
Exactly,
you can't just decide to stop feeling that.
That's true.
But it is complicated now, and so it seems clear to me with 2 episodes left, there's no way that the end is them together.
Yeah,
If
I
nothing
agree with
else,
that.
the fact that Tyrion more than once kind of plaintively floats that as that could work, and everyone's just like, "Come on, man."
Yeah.
Or I guess it's Varys the whole
Just
time.
Varys, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, Varys is like, "Okay, take a moment right now and think about whether you think that would actually work, or are you just playing fantasy, wishful thinking right now?"
Yeah, fantasy football is a good way to put it, though.
Yeah.
I do want to say I love how at the end of last season we were all thinking like, oh man, Tyrion's gonna be mad finding about Jon and Dany. But this season it's like Tyrion totally ships Jon and Dany. Okay.
Well, I think it's more a matter of they've done a weird thing where they've made Tyrion the true believer in Dany, but
Yeah.
I would ask why?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there was the speculation that he's truly in love with her or secretly in love with her, but I don't think they've pushed that at all in any
No,
way.
I
no.
think he's in love with her in the way that he is inspired by her. He is enamored by her. I don't think it's like a
Mhm.
romantic thing that he wants
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
with her. It's he loves his queen. And he even says it to Varys. He's like, look, you've changed sides so many times. Like
Mhm.
at some point you're gonna have to stick with someone. And
Right.
this is who I chose to stick with. This
Yeah.
is the first leader I've actually cared about.
I like that, even though I feel like they've told us that more than they've shown it.
Mm.
But I feel at the same time that, like, in this episode, we are building to a development that seems very likely at this point, which is that Daenerys is going to make emotional choices that result in lots of deaths, and people are going to feel like they need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think in this conversation, Danny's right. This information will take on a life of its own. Jon doesn't have a choice. And I think what the conversation's really about, she's begging him to keep it a secret because she knows, like, this is it. She's not going to back him.
Mhm.
And this choice will make them enemies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That she's going to have to do something, possibly take him out because of it, you
Yeah.
know. And this is her last ditch effort to save them.
I'm
And
telling
she
you
really
how.
gives him that choice. She says, look, there's only one way this is going to work.
Mhm.
And it's up to you. There's no coming back from that.
I
Yeah.
really liked the dialogue exchange of she has told him her position, and what she is essentially saying is like, you will tell no one else, and you will swear Sam and Bran to secrecy. And then he's like, but they're my family. We can all live together. And she's like, yes, I just told you how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked that exchange a lot, actually.
I liked
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's also clear she's desperate. She's in the, she's in the one in the begging like position here. Like, she's the one without the power in this circumstance.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since she's felt that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her biggest vulnerability for sure.
Mhm.
So Dan D says Danny basically told him, you say nothing, Jon Snow.
Mhm.
Or Jedi, you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Right.
And then Mike says apparently some Starks have issues keeping secrets.
Well, it's all of them, really, right?
Yeah.
No, Viv, what was you're saying?
Yeah, like last week's episode, it was on a scale from Bran Stark to Arya Stark. How much did you help out with the team project?
Yeah.
But this week, it's on a scale of Sansa Stark to Ned Stark. How well can you keep a secret?
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I want to say, this jumps ahead to that scene in the Godswood, but Sophie Turner during that scene where Sansa promised was great, because we see Arya promise and we see Sansa promise, and I was watching that scene and I was like, Sansa doesn't mean it.
Nope.
It's a very fluid thing for her.
She even says, how can I make a promise if I don't know what it is?
Yeah.
Right. But she does make the
Yep.
promise. But I feel like the performance was great because you could believe that John would believe it, or
Oh,
at
yeah.
least believe
Uh-huh.
it enough, but
Yeah.
still communicate to us, the audience, that, oh, no,
Yeah.
she's, well, depending on what it is, she is definitely not really promising. Might as well have pans down to crossed fingers behind her back.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like done a flashback to King's Landing.
Hmm.
You know, when
Which promise?
she told Cersei that Ned knew everything and that they were leaving, and
Ah.
Yeah.
So that scene, it's a short enough scene.
Mhm.
Thought it was interesting. Bran says it's your choice,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I don't know, with time traveler Bran, I would have maybe asked a follow up, like
Mhm.
because Bran is so disconnected now. Maybe John just doesn't understand how he
Mhm.
isn't really Bran anymore. Like
Yeah.
I would have said, okay, it's my choice. Like it's not really going to matter to Bran who wins this war in the grand scheme of things. So
Yeah.
maybe ask a follow up like, which is in the best interests of the
Mhm.
realm?
Well,
Or,
well, but I mean, time travel, we know that he can travel back in time. We know that he's had some visions of the future, but it's not like he can travel to the future
Yeah.
and then
Right.
sniff around and see. I've seen a lot of debate about that in the last 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And people saying, well, he can time travel. No, he can't. He cannot. But that's why he didn't know the answer about, will Dragonfire kill the Night King, or will this make a difference or that make a difference? He's literally, and
Yeah.
he even said it to Tyrion, I don't really want anything anymore. I live in the past, and
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
sad.
okay. In the past.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me that this may be of such insignificance in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, yeah.
That
That's
why
true.
would he even? So yeah, it's up to you, John. You whether to tell him or not.
You could also put another perspective on it, which is that it doesn't matter what John decides in this moment because it's all going to happen, whatever happens anyway.
It's all going to come out no
Yeah.
matter what. Yeah.
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 So Mike McCauley says that Sansa totally little fingered that whole situation by going to Tyrion. I
Yeah.
agree.
She
Phrasing of
manipulated
that, though.
Tyrion so effectively.
They really should still be married.
Because even though it didn't change Tyrion's loyalties, it upset him enough that he told Varys.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
Dummy.
Yeah.
well, and I loved Varys's line, where that's skipping way ahead again, but just this like, well, if 8 people know, that's not a secret, that's information.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chronologically, next up was the War Room, where we learn half of the Unsullied, half of the North, and half of the Dothraki are what was taken.
Yeah,
And
fascinating that it was just divided right down the middle for all 3 units somehow.
Especially because the Dothraki went out first. And
Yeah.
yeah. And
It's whatever, it's fine.
even Kaylee disbelieves. Look at her. She's like, no, I disbelieve. No.
not amused. Cersei has her troops, the Iron Fleet, and 20,000 of the Golden Company, which Varys says they're basically evenly matched now. Somehow. I just doesn't.
Okay.
That's what he said.
So that's what the plot needs.
Given that one of Cersei's big toys right now is the Iron Fleet, let's send half of our forces, including the Queen and 2 of the dragons and all her closest advisors, by ships for some reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's not like
ahead.
time our approach at the same time or anything.
Yeah.
I said a smaller group, but yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
they didn't
why? So
scout,
that
and
they
she-
can arrive before the rest of the units? Like, what's the point of that even?
Yeah.
As soon as they said that, I was like, what? I mean, even before we
Why?
actually saw the ambush, I was like, what?
Why were the Dothraki going by ship? They hate the water. They suffered enough to come to Westeros. Why wouldn't they be marching with the North? So many problems. And as Paulette says, everyone is a slave to the writer's plot lines. But
Yeah.
And
This is what
presumably it's
frustrates
a it's nowhere near half. They said we'll take a much smaller force by ship.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think when they get there to the ambush, when we get there, because it's still a little ways off, that looked like they were at Dragonstone, right? They were
Well, they went to Dragonstone first. Yeah.
checking in at home, right? So
Yeah.
presumably they would have waited there for the other troops to make their way up to King's
Well,
Landing
I
and
think
then
that's
come up at the same time.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. Was for
Right.
them to go
Things-
to Dragonstone. They were ambushed basically at Dragonstone. Basically.
Yeah, and then things clearly change. Sansa makes the point the troops need to rest. They've just gone through all this, which is
True.
a doy,
True.
you know. And
Yeah.
Dany's she just can't wait. She's so mad, you know.
I mean,
and
I
just-
think that's the real reason for sending those people down on the ships is that it's
Yeah.
faster.
and she's just every day my enemy grows stronger. Well, why? Why do you think that? You just said she's losing all this support.
Well,
Cersei's
and-
losing the support.
And wouldn't
they
every
did,
day
though.
your army get stronger because they're
Yeah.
healing?
They're definitely
Yeah.
not strong right now.
I
What
feel
do
like
you want to
just-
say?
I feel like they made a big mistake in thinking that, like, they already saw the scorpion that was shot at the dragons in
Mhm.
the 5th season, 6th season. So,
Mhm.
like, they've known that this exists. For them to think that they hadn't improved upon the technology,
Yeah.
that they hadn't
Mhm.
done anything, like, they've had those damn scorpions, those fully like terrifying scorpion
Well,
things everywhere.
and
of
they've
course
now
they did.
Yeah, and then they saw how the Night King could take a dragon down with like throwing a spear. It's the same basic principle of what's happening.
right?
Yeah,
And they said, "Hey, we've got these awesome smiths, and they were making all this dragon glass. Armor? No? Okay, let's skip that."
Yeah.
And
Paulette
flying
says-
so low that they couldn't scout ahead, like so
Yeah.
low.
This
Uh-huh.
is
That's what I'm saying is that they already knew that one very
Yep.
rudimentary one existed, already lost it to the Night King, like you said, and just to fly that low was just stupid. She was
well,
just
clearly
like,
Euron is just so good. He's got ninja sailing skills and he can
Yeah.
pass without a trace in
Yeah,
the ocean.
yeah.
Yeah, because
And-
sailboats sneak up on people
Just-
really fast. Just
And
Yeah.
especially when you're really high in the air coming and then swoop and
so
Right.
Paulette
yeah,
says,
this was one of the most unbelievable ambushes ever. This is-
Paulette says, hopefully Danny will realize that if you have an air force, its number one job is recon before the last dragon dies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And Dan D says, why is Bran so useless with the reconnaissance? Couldn't he have traveled a couple of days or even a couple of hours into the past to see what Cersei's been up to?
Well, not
Or, I
even
don't know,
that.
ravens?
Warg
Who says Bran
motherfucker.
is actually on Danny's side at this point?
Yeah, well, there is
Yeah.
that. I don't think he
Yeah.
cares so much.
Mhm.
Mike says, or heading straight into the firing side of the heavily armed ships instead of
Yeah,
looping around and attacking from behind. I know
yeah,
she would still have two
When
dragons.
yeah.
They
So
would have had to shoot their masts instead of the dragons, right?
while I was watching this and she's flying and the ships are showing up and they're going, and I'm like, don't they still have those big like arrow shooting things? And then it happened. And I'm like, why is he just staying there? Why is he not flying higher? What's going on? And it
Mhm.
just, and I think all the responses we have in the chat and all of our responses here is we are also enraged because it is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
Yeah, and
another
with-
bad strategy.
The momentum she had and the volley comes and they made it through the volley, she should have taken out Euron. She
Like,
was
is-
seemingly super close.
This is another one of those instances where it just feels so lazy to me. The writer said we need to have them lose a dragon so we can amp up the stakes. We need to have them lose a bunch of people and let's steal Missandei because we're horrible people
Yeah.
and do all of these things. But instead of having, I don't know, a realistic thing like maybe they've stopped at Dragonstone and Euron does, I don't know, what pirates do and sneaks in and finds the dragons and hurts a dragon, or I don't know, sneaks into the castle and does what they need to do. But no, we'll just do like this lazy thing and not be
Euron's
creative at
only
all.
ability on the show is magic plot weapons,
Yeah,
which is show up out of nowhere and insta win battles.
he is nothing like the Euron in the books.
Yeah.
And I keep forgetting that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily mind his characterization in the show, but it is getting old
Yeah.
that every time he's involved in a battle, all 3 major times so far, an entire fleet just comes out of nowhere, and 30 seconds later they have completely annihilated their enemy, their opposing force, based on like no actual apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
unearned.
yeah, a man built of plutonium, says Paulette, and I agree.
Yes, I agree.
I kind of like, on a characterization level, I like that the situation he has put Cersei in.
Mhm.
I think that's interesting.
I agree.
I don't like the use of him in the like the battle with the fleet and everything, because let's have a bunch of people take ships even though the gigantic enemy fleet that has already wiped out what you had of a navy is patrolling those exact waters. Sure, okay, fine. That happens only, and then how the ambush makes no sense, and that it makes no sense that she wouldn't just think to fly around from the side, like all of these things we've just talked about, like that battle, that whole sequence just falls apart. There's no piece of it that holds together. It makes no sense why they're even in the boats in the first place. It makes no sense
Yeah.
they wouldn't have seen the ships coming. It makes no sense why instantly all of their ships are defeated and everyone that we care about is actually manages to survive, even though they have to swim to shore, except for Missandei, who's miraculously captured alive. Like,
Yep.
how does
Well,
any
because
of
she
that
was on
happen?
a little rowboat, nobody else had time, so
Wow, okay.
she was the only one floating out there, but she couldn't pick anybody up. for
Kaylee behind
something.
you was just chasing her tail, and I thought that was a very brief but great metaphor of what was we were talking about here.
Haley is so involved in tonight's episode recap.
Are you podcast dog? Yes.
Yes.
Good girl.
Such a good girl.
Sorry for those of you just listening to the audio on the MP3 stream. This is just like definitely a delight tonight.
I am fine with them getting ambushed. I'm fine with them losing a dragon. It was just executed so horribly and so stupidly. That pisses me off. Visually amazing. The anguish when Rhaegon was falling and the blood spurting out of his throat, and it did accomplish. It shocked me. And it made me have lots of feels, and it was cinematographically, it was gorgeous.
Made me feel like Dany also was a bad pet owner.
Yeah.
Deserve.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, and I think that's why a lot of people are having such a negative reaction to this episode, is that there definitely are things that give us those feels, but they don't feel earned. They feel cheap. They feel manipulative and contrived, and that makes us angry.
Yeah. We're not that stupid, guys. Give us a little bit more effort.
I do feel they earned a point of inspiration when Euron turns it on the ship and like, hey, what do you know? This is going to work just as well as it does on dragons.
Yeah.
And just starts ripping holes through ships. I was like, holy.
You know what? I briefly actually want to, I think we actually skipped this, but the scene with Bronn where he shows up and threatens Jaime and Tyrion. I think of it just because that scene literally also has a magic crossbow that can be reloaded in like 0.5 seconds with one hand.
A heavy crossbow,
Yeah, like, and then he's like, let's cut out the part where it takes him 15 seconds to wind the crank to get it pulled back again, and then place another coil on. And everyone, meanwhile, we're just going to skip that part and make it look like he did it right away.
Big extra tool to crank it back, and
So that was dumb. So if we're not actually there yet chronologically, what order things happened in, I don't know. I don't remember.
But the Scorpions were definitely much improved and very scary weapons, and Euron's looked really cool with the tentacle crossbars. And once again, Tyrion's knocked out, so we don't have to show the rest of a battle. Comes
Yeah.
choking on the beach.
Right.
Can't find Missende.
Yeah.
Again, this is lazy because he says 1 second he says go to the skiff, and then he gets off and he goes all the way to the shore before he realizes she's missing. Like, no, he would have noticed right away. He would have been on top of that right away. It makes no sense. Also,
Yeah.
I want to keep you safe, so I'm going to bring you on this battleship. No.
Yeah.
Like, so much of this just does not
Well,
make
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And I'm extra annoyed because I really feel now that the whole point of them pointing out that, oh, there's a race issue and the Westeros people are not used to seeing brown people was just to get us to start caring about Missandei so that they could do this. And it just really feels like she's being fridged, even though we've
Yeah.
already known the character. This is fridging. This is, we're going to motivate our characters to do something by this character's death. And we're only going to put any character development into this character because we know we're going to do this to her. And this pissed me off so much.
Well, and the thing is too that like it would have been bad enough for it to play out this way if it felt at all justified how they came to have her as a prisoner.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Mhm.
It felt like they built a whole sequence around let's figure out a way for them to capture Missandei because we know that'll really piss off Dany when we have her killed.
Yeah.
That's and
That's all
I'm
it
not,
was.
and when I say we and that, I mean the writers, not like Cersei and
Yeah,
Euron,
yeah.
because obviously they couldn't have planned that. But just the idea of let's have that force wiped out, and yet every named character survives by swimming to the beach, and then they're fine because Euron's fleet doesn't pursue them or anything.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense either.
And how would
They're just a navy.
How
They don't do the whole
Cersei-
land thing.
how would Cersei and Euron even know to go after Missandei?
So if they captured her, Euron could have recognized her because she was at that whole summit thing.
But
Yeah.
it feels like they know so much more. Like the
No,
whole
I
point
agree.
of
Yeah,
putting her in chains again, and
Well-
we're not just going to kill her; we're going to kill her in chains.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, it was
annoys me. By the way, Paulette says about the scorpions. Even when Tyrion used it to kill his father, it took some time to reload.
Well, the crossbow. But the scorpions were kind of the same in the sense
scale.
that how
just
frequently
bigger,
they could fire, how many of those spears do they have? Well, it's magic.
Yeah. Hot.
As many as it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got them up to the beach. Any other? I think I think we covered that pretty well. So let's go ahead and back up to Bronn and the crossbow.
Okay.
Tyrion, I'm guessing it's like Tyrion's room, and he and Jamie are talking about, oh, that's right. You finally need to climb up for it or look up for it or something. I've always been wanting to make tall girl jokes. Tall women jokes.
I didn't mind that bit so much. I was wondering what Bronn's whole reaction to this job was going to be, and I was actually, I feel like primed to really want to talk about the things that I do think work. And in general, there are pieces of this scene that I don't think work very well.
Yeah.
One is that whole promise of Highgarden is like, it's kind of just laughable, really.
Yeah.
Because like, how could Tyrion promise that? Like,
He can't.
Like, even if he meant it, how could he make it happen? It's just laughable. Also, the magic crossbow. But what I did like was Bronn feeling a little bit like, you guys have been stringing me along. You keep promising me all of these fancy things. And do I believe Cersei's going to keep it? No. But you haven't kept your promises either, so why should I be more loyal to you than to her? And so, frankly, it looks to me like I get to pick.
Yeah.
And so you guys had better figure something out to make me pick you. Although, the fact that he just then walks out and leaves him alone makes me think, it wouldn't take much to send a commando unit after him and just say, an assassin just threatened the queen's advisor and this night. So let's go send 20 guys out to kill him.
Yeah.
Probably not going to beat 20 guys. His whole deal is that he sneaks in. He's good at that, but
I thought he's my fighting days are over, but my killing days I still have some more in
Yeah.
me or
Mhm.
whatever, as a threat of,
Mhm.
got an eye on
No,
you or
yeah.
something. And I was wondering I wonder if that's also like could be taken as he's another assassin heading
Right.
up north to take care of Cersei.
So I really liked the characterization of Bronn's sort of mental state, in the sense his emotional state of feeling like, yeah, I liked you guys, but overall, in the end, you guys used me.
Yep.
Mhm.
Did you actually care about doing anything that's good for me? No, I was always an employee to you
Yeah.
that you promised more money than you ever gave me.
I made you a
And
lord.
well, it's like, did you though? Because you actually didn't. Like, that was actually Tywin after the Battle of the Blackwater, right? So the thing is that, like, I get why Bronn is frankly like, this family, you know what? You guys are all terrible, honestly. And you guys were a bit nicer to me, but they're promising to be nicer to me. So this whole deal, you said, anytime someone offers you money to kill me, like, I'll double it. It's like, well, can you?
Yep.
Can you? And the only thing that I didn't really like there is the idea that they're saying, oh, well, yeah, Highgarden, that's better. We'll promise you that. And the idea that I really liked that Jamie was just like, wasn't even willing to entertain that, even for the sake of, there's a guy with
Yeah.
pointing a crossbow at my face. Was just like, what are you talking about? No, that's like, we could promise it to you and it would still never happen, and then that's when Tyrion's like, stop that.
Shut up. Shut up.
But
I just want to tack on to you. I love where Braun is coming from. No, the arrangements don't make sense. But also I want to just point out that when he says, what have nobles ever done? How did your family get their house? They were cutthroats, because it's true. The Lannisters were cutthroats. That's the whole Reigns of Castamere bullshit, right? It was all about being cutthroats. And I am on Braun's side. Like, these nobles deciding everyone's fate is not good for the people. None of this has been good for the people. And all of these political machinations, the only people that it matters to and the only people that it affects are nobles. So the majority of the people are being screwed over because everybody who's already married to everybody else somehow is having a big family squabble. And it's not fair. And I like that this shuts down all of those crackpot theories that say that Braun is a secret noble.
You like that it shuts those down?
Yes, because I don't like that theory, because to me, what makes Braun awesome is that he's not a noble. I am on the side of the small folk. In my idea, like, very few nobles do I actually want in any positions of power at the end of this.
I'm not convinced that it does shut those theories down. I don't think this scene does anything except just sort of foreshadow a future confrontation. Right? Nothing's resolved here.
No, this is just, hey, let's not forget Braun's here. We're going to have to deal with him later.
Right. Well, and this idea that he's kind of basically saying Cersei can't deliver her promise if she loses. And maybe I could help her do better.
Yeah.
But I'm going to maybe think that you guys are going to come out on top. But when you do, you need to know I could have shot you with a crossbow just now. Yeah. And
I also
want you
like his practicality of, I knew that Cersei was losing the first time I saw a dragon.
Well, and Jamie can relate to that, because they were standing next to each other at that very battle, and that was, of course, the point where Jamie then went back to Cersei and just like, what are we doing here? This is
we can't win this.
Got a dragon. Right. So Paulette says that in the end everyone dies and Braun sits on the Iron Throne. That's amusing. I like it. But only if the Iron Throne means nothing.
I cannot, like, at this point, I almost can't really imagine an ending where the Iron Throne even still exists.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't see the show not destroying it somehow.
I can
Yeah.
see the show doing that. I can't see George doing that. And I still maintain that George's answer and the show's answer will be different. So
Well,
we'll
I
see
think
what the show does.
I almost feel like they couldn't be the same anymore.
Yeah.
Really.
No, absolutely not.
I didn't take the time to read the article, but I did see a headline that said George disagrees with some of the choices that are being made right
Well,
now. But
yeah.
We all do.
yeah.
Well, we
Right.
knew that he disagreed when he stopped writing.
Yeah.
Because part of the contract is that he writes an episode every season.
Mm-hmm.
And when he stopped, he's like, they're not going where I was going. So I'm not writing for this because this is not my story.
Mhm.
So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was because I know from reading his Not a Blog, how much fun he had writing those episodes. Yeah, he's not writing them not just because they changed some things, but because he disagrees.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I feel like the only conceivable ending that I could imagine the throne existing as something to be sat on would only be in a purely ironic sense.
Mhm.
Like the Red Keep is crumbled ruins
And the throne's there.
and the throne's there, and maybe someone comes and sits on it only to sort of survey, like to finally pay off that whole line about like would see the kingdom burn if they could be
Mhm.
king of the ashes.
Exactly.
That was
Mhm.
said about Littlefinger, but I just mean I
Right.
feel like
Yep.
that's the only way I can envision an ending where the throne as a physical object still exists is
Mhm.
only as sort of a purely ironic symbol of something that has now gone. I would be shocked if there is an ending where it is some person now the leader of the Seven Kingdoms sitting on the Iron Throne in the Red Keep. I'll be shocked.
Yeah.
Might happen.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't see the future.
That'll be like the last thing is that then the last 10 minutes, they're going to fast forward to 20 years and it'll be Danny and John's child. No, I don't know.
I thought you were
Um,
gonna say fast forward 1,000 years, and
Oh,
it'll be Melisandre and the Night King walking down a modern New York City street and saying everything has happened before and it will all happen again.
Well, that's more
Nice.
entertaining than what Chooch said.
Gonna make me
Nice. I like that. Let's see. We've got
The White
mini
Walkers have a plan. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna
Sorry.
yell.
Sorry, everybody, for that tangent.
So we have many farewells at Winterfell. 1st
Mhm.
of which, Arya and the Hound
Yeah,
heading out together,
I like that.
heading to King's Landing. They both have unfinished business, and neither expects to come back.
Yep.
So we can assume he's going to kill his brother,
Mhm.
and I would guess she's going to kill Cersei. I mean,
So-
She's going to kill
there's-
someone.
Arya's
Right.
list. I have it. I have the
Ooh.
remaining members on Arya's list in the show. The Hound. I think she's going to let him live. I think
Definitely
she's
off the
taking
list
him
now,
off the
yeah.
list.
Hasn't she said at some point she had decided to take it? She said that in the House of Black and White. It's one of the
Yeah.
things she said during that. She had decided to take him off of it.
Cersei. I think Jamie will kill her,
Mhm.
but if it's Arya, fine. I know a lot of people are like, she's going to kill the Night King and Cersei. Whatever.
Mhm.
That would be
Ellen
pretty
Payne.
sweet, actually.
Yeah.
Just to hear all the idiot
Mhm.
guys
Yeah, all
crying
the
about
MRAs and
it. Oh
incels
God, she
like,
just
"Oh,
both
you
have. How
can't
is
do
that possible?
She's a super badass assassin. That's why. Go on, keep crying about what we have already explained is totally legitimate
Yeah.
for Arya to be able
Yeah.
to do.
Completely earned, yes.
Sir Ilan Payne, who the show completely forgot about. And
Yeah, I
has
don't
not
think
been in
he's
the show.
showing up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see that's happening. And then the Mountain,
hmm
which I think Sandor is going to kill. So her list doesn't actually have that much left. It really
Yeah.
Cersei is the only, real deal.
It's been pretty efficient.
Unless she's going to raise Joffrey from the dead just so she can kill him again, which sure, let's do that.
I'm starting to struggle a little bit with, like it's one thing to predict like the very, very ending in a general way, but I'm almost getting to the point where it's like I feel like I'm starting to see certain plot lines take shape, and I'm hesitant to just predict because even though I don't actually know, is it actually going to feel good if that's what happens?
And will it feel cheating if that's not what happens?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
So Paulette says at the last minute, Danny and John enlist the help of small teddy bears, and C-3PO sits on the Iron Throne.
yes, okay, yeah.
She then says Arya kills Cersei while wearing Jamie's face. Ooh, that
I've
could
seen
be
that
fun.
prediction a couple times.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's interesting,
yeah.
right?
And Mike says, didn't Arya mention that most of the people left on her list are dead?
Yeah.
Now, there is the you will kill many, you will close many eyes, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes. So the browns, she's killed a lot of the people that were on her list. The blue, the zombies, and a lot of people think, who are the green eyes? Are the green eyes Cersei? Are the green, and all of that.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that they managed to take a line that was just cool but didn't mean anything originally and make it about like prophecy of killing the Night King. I thought that was very cool.
Yep.
I feel like it would start to be a real stretch to make it mean anything more than that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Especially since Melisandre is gone now, so like even if she does kill somebody with green eyes now, like will they gonna like flash back to a
Hear an
voiceover of
echo
that
on the
line or something?
wind.
Yeah, like
The candles flicker.
I'm not necessarily all that interested in
What color
that.
eyes did Jack have? He's got two different ones. Hang on.
I don't remember. But so I don't know. I think they might be setting up some kind of a fake out with that. Because of course, we see her leaving the castle right after the scene where John tells Sansa and Arya and Bran, tells them about what's his deal. So, and given that what they're setting up with, because we have now Jamie heading down back to King's Landing, Arya heading. We know who Sandor wants to kill.
Yeah.
But Arya heading down there and like they're I think they're going to try to pull some like fake outs with like who are they actually there to kill? Well, who knows? I don't want to. I'm hesitating to speculate, not because I can't think of ideas, but because at this point, I think trying to have a too specific expectation is only going to hurt.
Yeah, and they're clearly stirring the pot and like
and
shooting a bunch of different shots so that we don't know. There's no way to know.
Right.
And Mike says that he looked, that Danny has green eyes and all of that. I can't imagine that Arya would try to kill Danny because she cares about John too much. I could see it from Sansa, but not from Arya. And that's my personal opinion.
Unless Danny tries to kill John.
Well, yeah. She would protect him. But I don't see, I think that she cares more about what John wants for himself than would decide for him, kind of a thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much faith. I don't know.
I think she's become the kind of person who believes that she knows better. And so I think that if she thought she needed to kill Danny in order to protect John, even if that was against John's wishes, I think she would still do it.
All right, I'll give you that. I agree with that. I think that if she thinks that he's in danger, she'll do anything to protect him.
This show is breaking me. I am having too much trouble thinking of horrible things that I don't want them to do. Anyway, I'm not even going to speak that one aloud that I just had. Never mind. In any case, we'll have to
Bowl.
I think Clegane Bowl seems guaranteed at this point.
It has to happen, absolutely.
We're all anticipating this.
Yeah. And so we'll see. I mean, are we kind of just through everything now, or we kind of only haven't talked about Tyrion and
we've got Danny and let's see. So we see both of the dragons are alive, and I think we did earlier, but
Mm.
Rhaegal's very, very wounded, worried that he may not quite get off the ground, but Dany's
That's part of the
great.
justification for why John isn't going with them. Like he
Right.
couldn't be on the boat
Couldn't
instead.
take the weight.
Yeah.
You're tiny.
Yeah, why
You'd
can't
be
he be
like
on a boat?
tick.
Uh,
Then we have Tyrion trying to reason with Sansa. The men in
Yeah.
my family don't do well in the capital.
yeah.
True. And that goes back to the first season. They say the Starks don't do well out of the north.
hmm
I think it was Kat that said it. The last time Ned left, I'm so worried.
Well, not to mention that, but when Ned's father and brother went down there, it's
Yeah.
just like Liv was saying.
Yeah. We got Sam and Gilly. John actually notices she's pregnant.
Way to go, Sam. Although I was very happy for them, but it did sort of raise the question in my mind, like, is there just no more Night's Watch now? Like, is there no consideration whatsoever? Like,
They did say that there's no need to protect the realms of man if if we've killed the Night King.
and that makes sense to me, but it was just like, I don't know if they've ever sort of officially released him from his vow. Like he talked about needing a pardon for stealing books from the Citadel, but not from
not for leaving the Night's Watch.
I'm not planning to go back to the Wall.
Yeah, there's that.
Although I could imagine, even if they just did never show it on the show, that if there was a decision made of White Walkers are gone, the wildlings are planning to go back up north, and there's not really any particular need for a Night's Watch in the way that there used to be. Let's just declare a blanket amnesty for people who fought in the battle here. Like if you came down and fought for the Night's Watch in this battle, then you are released from your vow.
Yeah. You survived that. Yeah. Your watch is ended.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So even if they just did never show it, I think we can imagine that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paulette says, how much of the Night's Watch is even left? So we've got Sam and
John, kind of. I mean,
Sam. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Although that's right. We decided he died, so he served his time, right?
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And so Sam and Ed were the only named people in the Night's Watch left. So
there could be, but whatever.
Yeah, I think
like going by their logic, half the Night's Watch is gone.
In some ways, because of the funeral at the beginning, because John used several bits of the Night's Watch funeral language in that, that felt to me a little bit like saying the Night's Watch has ended.
Yeah. Agreed.
I could see that. So I think we're done with the North. Everything from here on goes a bit south.
The North.
It goes south.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Sadly, it does.
Well, yeah.
So King's Landing, we've got Cersei moving her meat shields into the courtyard. Nobody's making any bones about what she's doing and how she feels about things.
Yeah.
Euron reports killing the dragon. She's very happy about that, and you can see she's playing along with him. She doesn't like it, but she's playing the game with him.
Yeah,
my love. Our child will rule all of it, and they reveal that they have Missandei somehow, and she's in chains. Breaker of chains. Did anybody else get anything else out of this? It was pretty cut.
I hate everything.
Dry.
I do love the fact that she is so miserable that she's right back where she was when Robert was alive, where she's pretending to this man that she really despises. Yep, we're gonna rule, and it's your baby, and it's awesome, and it's really Jaime's baby by all estimations.
Yeah.
So, fuck you, Cersei. Relive that shit.
Yep.
And we go
Yeah,
back to. Oh, go ahead.
it is just a nicely. It is one of the nice plot lines that they've still got. I think is just that idea of Danny, or not Danny, but Cersei is such a well drawn character in this context of we can simultaneously understand every decision she's made to get to where she is, and yet where she is she's just created this gilded prison for herself,
Yeah.
and she hates it,
Yeah.
but she knows she built it, and she's just in this perfect little hell of her own creation.
It's at the point where it's just like pride that's keeping her there. Like
Mhm.
if she could just say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. I'll leave. I'll find my own way. She could find her own way. She could be happy. She could let go of this, but she doesn't want to give up. It's
Mhm.
pride. It
And
is
And
I think
100%
Go ahead, Viv.
pride. Go ahead, Viv.
I feel like she feels like she sacrificed her children to this whole game.
Yeah. That if she
And
gives up
she's-
now, what
the
was
hell
her
was it
it
for?
worth?
Mhm.
And Viv was right before. It's worth nothing. Everything you did
Mhm.
just gave you misery, brought you right back. You're no better. You're just worse.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fuck Cersei.
All right, so we head back to Dragonstone, where so the they had just lost the dragon. They had just had this huge defeat, and
Mhm.
Grey Worm's done. You know, he wants to storm King's Landing.
Mhm.
Varys is urging caution. This let's not remember. You don't want to destroy the city you came to save.
I
Mhm.
told
You're going to
you.
be playing into her hands. This is what she wants.
Yeah.
What were you
Don't
saying, Viv?
become what you wanted to defeat.
Yeah. And just that he gave that, remember I told you, I'd tell you when you're about to do something.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, this is the thing. And
Yeah.
she's just not listening to it, you know?
Although I have to say, just from a strategic perspective, Danny's maybe kind of blinded by, her, whether you want to call it madness or whether or just her feelings of spiraling. But when, like, the context of what he says is really significant, because he originally made that promise when she was saying, you've changed sides a lot. You
Mhm.
were serving other kings, but working against them while you were supposed to be serving them. Like, how could I ever trust you? And the way that I'm going to decide to trust you is by saying that if you ever feel like I'm going wrong and you should tell me. But the point is, when he specifically invokes that to tell her,
Yep.
and then she chooses not to follow his advice,
Yeah.
how can she not put him in chains at that point?
Exactly. Agreed.
But at the same time, technically speaking, she does still not quite make the decision to burn King's Landing until everything else happens.
Yeah.
So it's not that
Yeah.
point, but
And I
Yeah.
really like how she phrased it too. So the scary part, I will cast down tyrants at any cost, which is kind of
Mhm.
what a tyrant is.
Yeah.
And not seeing the irony, but
Mhm.
that it's not going to make any difference. But yeah, offering Cersei a surrender will look good for me, so the people
Mhm.
know why they're getting burned.
Yeah.
Um,
So she's
Pretty
not
terrifying.
walking away from that idea.
No.
No.
Mhm.
Which after, so the Tyrion and Varys have a conversation after that, and then it's pretty
So-
clear that Varys has made up his mind of what's going to happen here, of what he needs
Isn't
to have
Tyrion
happen.
asking for Varys to be killed? Because honestly, that was my first thought. At the end of this scene, I was like, all right, Varys has to die. He was told he was going to die in Westeros. This is his time.
Mhm.
Because if you leave him alive, Tyrion, you're going to get fucked. Dany's going to get fucked. Everything is going to get messed up.
Mhm.
Varys is switching sides. He told you, he essentially told her, and he told you She thinks she has a destiny. We need to get off this crazy train right now.
Mhm.
If you don't do anything, it's your fault. And I think we all know that this is going to
Yeah.
go pear-shaped.
Yeah. And once again, I'm sort of like I'm doing the brand thing, and I'm like seeing different sort of possible future timelines
Mhm.
take shape in my brain, but I almost like don't want to say any of them because it's not going to be fun if I'm right, and then it's not going to be fun if I'm wrong. It's
Yep.
like just it doesn't act it's not actually helpful for our enjoyment of the show to try to predict with granular detail exactly what's going to happen. It's
Agreed.
tempting, but when it's this close to the end, it's going to start to be too granular.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty close that Tyrion knows Jon is the better choice to lead
Yeah.
Westeros.
All the I
They
feel
both
like
agree she won't share power.
the show wants us to all believe that. I'm
I
not
don't.
necessarily saying Danny would be great, but I'm also not actually convinced John's that great. Like that
Agreed.
whole idea of like, oh, he doesn't want it. Maybe we should have a king who doesn't want it. Is like John got stabbed by his own men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's made some
Yeah.
terrible tactical decisions.
He's too
Yeah.
honest when he shouldn't be,
Yeah.
and
I also think the
has
writers
no
want us
poker
to think
face.
that Tyrion is maybe agreeing that Jon should be the one. I don't think so. I think Tyrion is still going to stay with Dany.
I think the thing that leads to that, though, is when Varys says, "Who do you think is better?" and all Tyrion says is he doesn't want to lead. He doesn't say her. He says he doesn't
Yep.
want it. So, like, they're
Mhm.
literally making us think that Jon is who Tyrion favors, but that he just won't be disloyal
Yeah.
to Dany
Yeah.
because she doesn't. I think he feels sorry for her because she doesn't have anyone left. He doesn't have anyone left, really. I mean, I don't know where that's going to land, but
He sees the good in Danny, which is there. It is real. And he doesn't want to believe that her bad impulses would overcome that. He doesn't want to believe it, but it's kind of he's been forced into a box where it's just faith at this point. So that's really all he's got.
and
It's
he's got
hard
a
to
life.
argue because yeah.
He's got a life of being told that he has to be loyal and honor the family name. So it's almost like this is him kind of going through that again. You know, you're a Lannister, act like one, and now he's like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not a Lannister. I chose this team, and now I can't ever quit it.
Well, right. Like he feels like she gave him something new to live for when he had been trying to drink himself to death.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Mhm.
But kind of like one of the big 1-2 punches that Varys says, Jon has the only chance of actually keeping the realm together,
Yeah.
Yeah.
of keeping the North in the realm.
Well, and Tyrion can't even argue that. Like that his only offer there is like, well, if we could have them rule together, that would work.
Yeah. And I really don't see why that's off the table. What Jon went through, and I mean, okay, he got killed by his own men, but it
Mhm.
was the Night's Watch, and it was an asshole, and it was, I don't know.
Mhm.
It's not exactly the same as the North. And the North is fine following him as a bastard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why would a little incest that's really kind of, I don't know.
Well, but remember, we also saw the whole thing with the North following him was like we saw several of the houses abandon him when he brought the foreign queen
Yeah.
Yeah.
home, right?
And there's the other point of she doesn't want to share it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's true. Absolutely true. Yeah. 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 There's no, I don't see any way of her being down
Mhm.
for that.
No.
That's true.
I think
Yeah.
the only person she could have shared reign with was Khal Drogo, and that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Although I do feel like although I've participated in it too, but there's some rose-colored glasses that we look back on Drogo for. Drogo was still totally on board with the raping, pillaging,
Oh no, I'm not.
Dothraki lifestyle and all that stuff.
I'm not saying that they were pure equals and blah blah blah. No, what I'm saying is, at that point in her life, she could share it.
Yeah.
I'm
Afterwards,
reacting.
she was reborn,
Yeah.
and she could never share it.
Right. I think I was only reacting partly to what you said and partly to I was seeing someone else say that like the only people left on the show that I would actually follow are Danny and like before he died, Drogo. And I'm like, what?
No, yeah, no, I agree.
No.
I agree. Yeah, Khal Drogo would not be my leader at all.
Yeah.
Even book Khal Drogo, who's better than the show. No.
So in any event, though, yeah, I think that Danny is conflicted. There's a part of her, like when she says to Jon, that would like to believe that they could be together and rule together, and wouldn't that be great? But I think a part of her knows that's impossible, and she doesn't want to believe it, but she does nonetheless. Part of her does. And so I think that her, like, even if it's kept mostly a secret, it's just a fact that, by telling Sansa and Arya, them telling other people, and it is out now. And so I think she was absolutely right in the sense that it does not matter if he says that he doesn't want it. There will be people who will push for it anyway, and that will cause enough trouble that it ruins everything.
Yeah, that he'll tell everybody, I bend the knee, I give it to her. And that people aren't going to stand for that.
In the end, he betrayed her because he said he wouldn't tell. And then he told.
Yeah.
Technically, he didn't promise not to tell. We were left with him not making that promise.
Yeah, wow. But she told
Sansa
him
definitely
this is the only way.
Well, that's definitely true. So Sansa swore explicitly and then broke that vow, and she swore in the Godswood. So I think that if the show were more interested in that, we could say that that was sort of like a dooming flaw or something for her. But I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
But I think she demanded that he promise, and he didn't, and they left on the note of disagreement.
And this also brings up Danny's 3 betrayals.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I couldn't remember the specifics.
Once for blood and once for gold. And a lot of times, Danny thinks she knows what her betrayals are. And she counts Miri Mazdur as the first betrayal for blood. And then she thinks that Jorah was once for gold. And then who's going to be the one for love, and a lot of people thought, oh, Tyrion's going to betray her. He's going to betray her. Well, it sounds like Jon's betraying her,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although that starts really blending the book show canon, right?
No, this is in the show as well.
Is it?
Yeah, is in Karth she gets that.
Yeah,
she gets the thing in Karth. I think it was Karth.
You may be right. I don't remember that, but you may be right. But I always kind of thought of that in the books as kind of that illustration of how prophecies are kind of a cheap magic trick, because they're literally so vague that you not only can you not predict the future by them, but you can't even really already be sure if they already happened or not. It's like, oh, that was a betrayal. Is that the one or not? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's still coming. So what good is this betrayal except to make you paranoid? And so you could almost argue that's actually the actual point.
Right. Prophecy is a curse.
Yeah. So in any event, I think I don't know if they're going to bring that back in the show. I feel like they would have I think they would have resurfaced it since then if they were planning to pay that off. But I mean, I think that there are a lot of different ways that it could still go, because I think it's a little bit like what Chooch was saying, is that they're firing a lot of shots. We talked about, like, You know, we all are pretty sure Cersei's going to go out, but who? Who kills her, right?
Yeah.
It could be a number of different people. And so, like, who is it going to feel the most satisfying? Well, there's more than one choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Arya's got her on the list, but then also Tyrion and Jaime both have their own really, you know, significant, you know, machinations driven. But it would also be some poetic irony in having her take herself out in some way,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And so, there's lots of different ways that these things could play out, you know.
Yeah.
And not to go out back to Ramsay though, but if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't
You
been
weren't
paying
paying
attention.
attention. Yep.
Very true.
Mm.
So the last scene, Team Danny with a small guard of Unsullied.
And let's just have a dragon right in front of these scorpions.
And
Yeah.
I guess they marched. Geography's out the fucking window. I
Yeah.
wrote a note thinking of the geography of just King's Landing of the city. Like, what gate is this? Where are they? But even thinking the geography of the land, I haven't looked back at a map again, but how far Dragonstone would be from the Red Keep. And I don't know.
Yeah.
They don't have
Dragonstone's
ships
not very
and-
far,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's
not far.
yeah.
I feel like
But-
this might be the same place that Stannis was landing. Remember when Battle of the Blackwater, when all the ships came
Oh,
in?
okay, sure.
Stannis
Yeah.
and his crew were off like on a side gate or some shit coming in by
Yeah.
land.
The mud
It
gate.
struck me how barren it is. It's like
Yeah.
really deserty.
Mhm.
And anyway, so they head there to parley. Tyrion and Qyburn
Yeah.
exchange their demands.
Hmm.
And then Tyrion just like marches on. And that was a bit of for me, a nail biter. But
Mhm.
she pulled the trigger. They got all these arrows pointed right at him.
It was a very Tyrion move, though. Right?
Mhm.
Like, I will say, like, there are a couple of times in the series when Tyrion is just like, I don't care. I'm gonna do this, you know?
Mhm.
And it's stupid and he should be killed for it, but it works out. Sort of.
Mhm.
Not really from a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And then
I'm frankly not convinced that I think to the extent that Cersei didn't order him killed, it might only just be that she doesn't like she would rather see him captured so she could torture him or something. But like the idea that they wouldn't kill him because somehow that might invoke some immediate reprisal. Well, that's exactly what they do with Missandei. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she doesn't kill him because she's had planned this whole Missandei thing,
Mhm.
and she knows for some reason knows that this will hurt Danny
Yeah.
worse, that Missandei dies in chains.
Well, I suppose too that the risk is that Tyrion sort of swapped places with Qyburn, so she doesn't want them to kill
Yeah, there's
Qyburn.
that
So
too.
that might be it. But yeah, I mean, killing Missandei was a foregone conclusion because Danny was not going to surrender. Cersei had to know that.
Yeah.
So, like, it was all kind of a farce of an offer.
The thing that it wasn't the thing that most annoyed me, obviously. Missandei I didn't like at all, her death, but Drogon was not that far away. And after what we had just seen happen with Euron and the scorpions and all that stuff, like when you looked at the scene, it was like at the first time I watched it, I didn't really notice how close Drogon was, but he was really super close considering the distance that we saw those
It's
spears going. It was just the stupidity throughout the episode, the tact, and it was last episode too. The running of the Dothraki out first is just, there's so many huge tactical mistakes that I kind of almost wonder if anybody but Cersei actually can fucking like handle being the big boss in charge, because she's the only one that's not making huge tactical mistakes.
well,
she's been playing a perfect game all along, for sure. She
It's
always
so
has.
annoying.
well, perfect in some respects, but
Well,
now
yeah, true.
But she's trapped.
not so perfect in the sense that now she is indebted to Euron and she's trapped in the Red Keep with a bunch of people who hate her. And now
Yeah.
she owes
Yeah.
a bajillion gold pieces to the Iron Bank for the Golden Company.
I'm
And
not saying there
No,
aren't
I haven't.
costs.
No, Don't forget that she paid all that money, no elephants. So she's having a
Mhm.
bad day in her own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paulette brings up that she sent Bronn to kill Tyrion. So is that
Oh
diminishment?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think the difference there is it's one thing when Tyrion and Jaime are way up in the north, far away, wherever, send Bronn after to kill them. But when Tyrion is right there,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
different. And I think ultimately the fact that they had sent Qyburn out and then Tyrion, then they kind of walked past each other, right? So if she kills Tyrion, Qyburn is kind of forfeit.
Yeah.
Whereas Missandei was an existing prisoner, it's just from a negotiation standpoint, it is different.
Yeah.
And
Mike
And I can
says,
see, because she made a clear demand: surrender
Yeah.
or I will kill Missandei.
Right.
And
Mike
you have to
said-
follow it up, right?
It's an
Mike
idle
said-
threat otherwise.
Mike says, for a minute there, I was thinking Tyrion was about to have a bunch of arrows in him, but was Tyrion smart enough to know that he wouldn't be harmed, be as bold as he was, or did he just not care? I think that he knew that there was no other choice, that he had to do everything possible. And it's not that he didn't care. It's not that he didn't know she could kill him. It's just he did the Tyrion thing. He's like, got no other choice. I'm going to go with the riskiest plan there is.
Well, I think the crazy interesting irony of him doing that is that really it wasn't for Missandei and it wasn't for Daenerys. It kind of, in a way, was for Cersei and
Oh, yeah.
specifically King's Landing, of just like, if you provoke her enough, she's just going to burn the city down and so many people are going to die and you're going to lose anyway. It doesn't have to go that way.
Yep.
But you are forcing it to go that way. Please don't do that.
He was begging with
Yeah.
Cersei as much as Dany was begging with Jon. And if given the option, I truly believe Tyrion would say, don't kill Cersei. I don't think he wants his sister dead, no matter how awful she is.
Well, no, I agree, especially since he believes she is pregnant. So I think that means something to him as well.
Family
And,
is the most important thing to
right.
Tyrion.
So I'm not convinced. So if Cersei were to surrender, not that she ever would, but if she did, I believe Tyrion would advocate for her to not be killed, but I don't believe that request would be honored.
No. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody
So then
cares
there's-
about Euron. They can kill him.
Right.
Yeah.
So then there's the big moment. Miss Cindy, do you have any last words? And Dracarys, burn the motherfuckers down, right? And the mountain beheads her.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that Qyburn was nowhere to be seen for the rest of the scene.
Yeah.
I am right there with you, Missandei. Is the only thing you could have said.
I had mixed feelings only because I think at that point I was mad at the writers more than Cersei for that, so in that sense. But I kind of felt like Missandei is justifiably angry, has always believed in Dany, owed her everything. But I don't know that Missandei was ever the person who was on board with let's go burn thousands of innocent people alive if it means we win the battle.
Yeah. No, I took it more, well, again, this is me and this is not what I think the writers intended. To me, I was like with Missandei because I was like, fuck this whole show. Fuck the writers. I am done.
Burn it down.
Dracarys, yeah. And
yeah,
I agree.
I can definitely see it as like kill these people.
In her character. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that, but at the same time, what that means in context is attack the city and burn it, even though we've had this whole discussion about how thousands of people will die.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that was just I don't know, I guess fan service is what I would say. I guess for the masses, right on, burn, motherfuckers. You know,
Well,
I
it's
guess.
kind of like, hey, let's take the character that we're killing for plot reasons of, just like some, Daenerys is not motivated enough somehow to we want to drive home that she's going to do something reckless and dangerous, and we want to give her a real strong emotional reason why. So let's kill the only remaining person of a woman of color on the show.
Yep.
So it's one thing to say, yeah, let's give her a badass final line. It's like, well, okay, yeah, but you're also killing her.
Yep.
Mhm.
And like you read some, people who want to like are defending it, and it's like, well, given the situation she was in, it was just really like there was no choice. And I'm like, but the choice was putting her in their clutches.
Yep.
Like that was a contrived plot BS little thing. Like they decided to do that.
At no point did this plot make sense. It was lazy. They could have done a million other things, and I hate everything about it.
Yeah.
Danny gives a whole bunch of really good meme bait portraits. She got some
Yeah.
really mean faces.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So
You learned something
I
from
get-
Leanna Mormont.
I guess what they're implying is that the Golden Company is elsewhere. Cersei's bringing all the meat shields into the Red Keep.
Mhm.
Danny brings this little teensy tiny force up to the Red Keep, and she kills Missandei knowing this is the absolute declaration of war, or final declaration of war for the final standoff. Why wouldn't the Golden Company just come out and slaughter
I know.
Danny?
Why?
Why don't they just turn all those scorpions and just take out the beach? It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I
Agreed.
will say what I said earlier this season, which is that I think Cersei kind of has a similar vein of Littlefinger, where he'd be happy to rule ashes. She wants ashes. Like,
Yeah.
I still think she wants to burn that fucker down.
Yeah, she hates the people for hating her.
Mhm.
She hates the world for being the place that it is.
Yeah.
She hates herself for what she's become in a lot of ways, I think. And so I think she, whether she is consciously aware of it or not, she's total death wish. And she is basically going to try to bring as many people down with her as she can.
Yep. Paulette says, and Missandei's basically telling Danny what reckless thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what just hurts the most is that Missandei is such a great character. We love her, and it's so sad to have her die, but then it makes us angry to be given those sad feelings in a cheap and lazy way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it was earned, if it wasn't so lazy, if it wasn't just so stupid, we might have different feelings. But this just, like, somebody in the writer's room had to say, people are going to accuse you of killing the black people. People are going to accuse you of fridging this person, and it doesn't make sense. And they had to say, yeah, no, that's what we're doing.
Allow me to propose,
HBO, they destroyed our Confederate show, so,
allow me to propose a slight modification that leads to the same ultimate outcome. Instead of this nonsense about an ambush, one of the dragons was too wounded to make the flight down, so it's out of the fight for that reason. It's not dead, or maybe it died in the battle, whatever. We did not have this ambush. What we have is this last-ditch effort of Varys and Tyrion trying to persuade her to not just burn the city. And there's this discussion of, we absolutely need to try to give her one more chance to surrender. And so they send Missandei as like the envoy.
Yeah.
And that's when Cersei does this to her.
Yeah.
That would have felt like Missandei was like volunteering. She was willing to go do something for the effort.
Other than just being a
and
victim.
Cersei betrayed that instead of just having a magic ambush.
I could see Missandei even offering to do that.
Yeah.
That, no, please, me say, just let's try for peace.
Yeah.
And no, it
Yeah.
just
Instead, let's strip her of like any agency except saying a badass, line as she goes out.
Yeah.
Like you could have had the whole final sequence be the same, but it wouldn't have felt so stupid that she was there because of magic battle plot,
Yeah.
which doesn't make any sense at all and is just
Yeah.
completely contrived.
Paulette says that would have made a great 7th episode. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's again, we have to reiterate that, the fact that, they're so rushed in 6 episodes, that's their fault.
Yeah.
They made
They
the
did it to
decision.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
I think that's
yeah.
what Paulette is right there trying to
Yeah, exactly.
constantly
Yeah.
point out
Mhm.
because yeah. So
Yeah.
do we have ratings?
Yeah. Let's call for some ratings.
All right.
I'll go ahead. I will rate it a 6 out of 10 ale horn shotguns.
All right. Viv?
I'm good. I'm good.
I don't have any fancy anything for it. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. I'm just like, it's just the most disappointing. And I was really pissed last week and saying people are just going to start turning their back on it because it's no longer cool. No, this episode was just disappointment.
Yeah.
Bad things have happened in other episodes, and I did not rate it this low. I don't think I've ever rated an episode this low. It just was just beyond disappointing.
Yep.
I was going to say 4 out of 10 4 out of 10 scenes that had anything good in them at all.
All right. So you said 4 out of 10?
Yeah.
Okay. And I am going to give this a 1 out of 10
Oof.
fucks that I have left. It really should be 0 fucks, but there were a couple of good things in this episode.
Yeah.
That makes this the lowest I have rated an episode. I actually went back and the awful Ramsay raping Sansa.
Yeah.
I
think
gave it a
that's
3.
that I think like by, like Metacritic ratings or whatever, that had previously before this season been the lowest rated episode because of the awfulness in it. But like even that episode, it was mostly that part that was bad and the rest was fine.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why I rated that as high as I actually did, was
Yeah.
because I could find redeeming qualities. By the way, Viv rated that as 0, and I commend you for that.
Oh, wow. Did
Which is
I?
why I almost gave this a 0 myself, but I decided there were a couple of things that I had to, give it some credit. So Paulette gives it 3 out of 10 stale cupcakes and a cold Starbucks cups swiped from the writer's table. And Mike gives it a 5 out of 10 poor battle tactics.
Yeah.
Cumulatively, we as hosts give this episode a 3.8 out of 10.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
and I know I tanked it, but
and the thing is,
I
like,
think I gave it too much, maybe.
Well, this show, like, like this podcast, like, we're not hate watching this show, right?
No,
we love this show.
Yeah.
And,
We're here 'cause we
like
love
all
it.
of our other ratings are, tend to be average, very high because we love the show.
Yeah.
Like, none of us are happy to have been so frustrated by this episode.
yeah.
And, I think just like you were just saying, like, we've all kind of been there where we see people complaining about something or other. And it's like, oh, come on, people are overreacting. But like this episode just had too much stuff where it just started to really reach the tipping point where I'm not even critiquing what's happening in the show. I'm critiquing the behind the scenes making of the show. And we've made jokes about like, oh, the budget of like, that's why Ghost isn't in the show, is because dragons take the budget or whatever. And like stuff like that, we've talked about actor changes and everything, but like now, obviously, we're all understanding that ending a show like this has got to be ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
How do they bring something this messy in for a landing? I have to say, I would have said the same thing about Avengers Endgame. And again, no spoilers, except that I feel like some quibbles aside, I feel like they stuck the landing pretty damn well in that movie. Whereas for here, it remains to be seen how everything actually lines up. They're obviously doing things to try to get everybody positioned for what they want the final state to be. And maybe that once that happens, it's going to feel like some of the payoffs were worth it, even if we were frustrated by how we got there. Maybe, but boy, we're just really starting to see the seams and the wires here, starting to manipulate that stuff, and it's really a bummer.
Yeah.
I really hope. See, I had such hope for this season because the first 3 episodes were so good. They were so good. And I thought, wow, this is going to be the best season of them all. I really hope all of this horrible writing and lazy writing, I hope that they saved them all for this episode and that we get something better. I try to be a hopeful viewer, but I just this episode after such highs, it hurts so much.
Yeah.
Viv, what were you gonna say?
I feel almost like I wonder if this is what it would have been like if Firefly hadn't been like immediately canceled. Like would Firefly, like it's like one of those things where like, well, I wish that this show hadn't been canceled, that they could have finished their story arc and things like this. And then this is happening. So it's like, well, maybe it's a good thing that Firefly got taken away and shows like it before they got to do the ending that we would have found unsatisfying, I suppose. But I'm stunned because I loved episodes 1 and 2. 3 had some serious things wrong with it as far as choices they made for the characters tactically and strategically, and shit like that. And putting the Dothraki up front and the Unsullied up front, and all of the choices they've made have seemed kind of not all of them, but there have been a lot of hollow ones. And it's just like, I'm really you talk about being a hopeful viewer. I am freaking praying that they can pull out some redeeming shit in the last 2 episodes. Because it's just, I'm stunned that we're at this point and that they've got the characters making such clumsy
here's the I am in somewhat of a minority in some fandoms in the sense of being one of the people who actively liked the endings of both Lost and Battlestar Galactica. And I know I don't think a lot of people shared my opinions on those, but it's fine. But what I liked about them was that as both of shows were sort of coming in for their landing, it seemed clear to me that they were prioritizing character resolutions over plot resolutions. And that made a lot of people angry because they wanted the plot resolution. And I didn't mind it so much because I felt like they got the character resolution, and that's what I was more invested in. And so I enjoyed the ending, but it made a lot of people mad. This show, I feel like, is doing the exact opposite. It's aiming for a specific plot outcome, and it's going to get the characters there no matter how much it needs to force and contort them.
Yeah.
And that is frustrating to me in a way that the Lost in Battlestar Galactica didn't feel.
Yeah.
But I wonder if I don't know. I mean, the people who really felt let down for those exact reasons in Lost in Battlestar Galactica, because they felt like it just let all the plot go, which they did, frankly, in order to service the characters. Like, I loved that, but a lot of people didn't. This show doing the opposite. Are those people gonna like this? Where I don't know.
Hard to say.
Based on the fandom reaction to this last episode, seems like maybe not, but
maybe not.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
And we'll be there to talk about it and bitch about it.
And we'll be joyful if it's excellent.
Yes. So Mike says, I felt bipolar over the last 2 episodes. Last week was too good, and this week was such a letdown. Yeah. There were a couple things that were a little too happy. Not happy, but too, yay, our people win, and not that many people died kind of a thing. last week, but yeah. Well, we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah.
Any
Paulette
parting
wonders if
shots?
Paulette wonders if they have any cupcakes at 7-Eleven. Yeah, I hear you.
I need a cupcake.
I mean, my only parting shot is not like on the about the show, but just kind of personal announcement that
Yeah.
my book not Nina Kimberly, but Phyllis Esposito, Interdimensional Private Eye, the ebook is now available for pre-order at Amazon.com. You check my various social media channels, you'll see those links. So check that out.
Woohoo!
Yay.
Right on. I think that does it. Wraps us for this week. Next week, next Monday, we'll be discussing the penultimate episode titled "To Be Determined."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to mention one thing. At Balticon Memorial Day weekend in Baltimore, Inner Harbor, it's an annual, literature convention, and awesome people go to it. And Christiana and I will be there, and we are going to be doing a Beyond the Wall live show. And it is, if I remember correctly, we're doing it on Saturday night, which is right after the end of the series. It ends on Sunday night, and then the next Saturday is our panel, isn't it?
Is that right? I don't have it pulled up.
Wow.
Let me I can confirm that in just a moment.
Yeah.
So give me a moment. I have to pull it up. I did not have it pulled up.
But we won't have Chooch and Nettie there physically. But we are hoping to work out some magics with video or something. But we will have Billy and Terry Flynn from Geek Radio Daily and a decade more of awesome podcasting stuff that they've done. They'll be on the panel with us.
And it'll be fun. So if
Beyond
you're
the
there,
Wall,
go.
Beyond the Wall Live will be on Saturday, the 25th at 8 p.m. at Balticon. And then as far as the the second to last episode will be this Sunday on the 12th, and then the last one will be the 19th. So Balticon is actually the weekend after the finale.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Okay, I thought you were saying that. Okay, I misunderstood. So yes, I thought you were saying like it was the night before or something like that. But okay, we've clarified it. She was right all along.
We'll be done. We'll be done with the series.
Yeah.
By Balticon.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's crazy.
That should be an exciting discussion. Although you only have an hour, that's going to be tough. 45 minutes or whatever the programming slots are.
We may just have to.
We'll do what we can.
We may have to keep the room. We'll bolt the doors and keep.
Yeah.
You guys will have fun. It's always fun to do a panel at Balticon.
Definitely.
And it felt weird last year not having one because there wasn't a show last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange. but
yeah.
People
will have opinions, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I think
there will be many feels.
Yeah.
I look forward to listening.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining and getting in the chat. And we will talk to you next Monday. And the second to last episode, home stretch. Thanks for joining. Did I do the wrong one again? I'm so good at that.
If you have feedback for the Beyond the Wall podcast, you can email us at btw@specficmedia.com. You can also leave us a comment on the website. Go to specficmedia.com where you'll find a shiny BTW button. That'll take you right to our page. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 Unported license. Feel free to share and remix. Just give us credit and don't charge money for it.